What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto parents neglect him and trains his little sister? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Mommy, Daddy, a 6-year-old blonde girl with bright blue eyes shouted, bouncing up and down on her feet happily. Did you see that? That was great, right? Yes, Narumi. That was really great. A red-haired woman smiled. She bent down and kissed her daughter on the forehead. The woman was beautiful. She had a slender but feminine build, fair skin, violet eyes, fiery red hair with strands that framed both sides of her face and a black clip that parted her hair to the left, keeping it out of her eyes. She wore a high-collared, sleeveless blouse under a long, loose-fitting dress. She had a dark blue band on her left wrist and purple standard shinobi sandals on her feet. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. Narumi gave a big smile to her mother and said, "Okay, Mommy." She suddenly felt a hand on top of her head. She looked up and smiled at the person whose hand was ruffling her hair. It was a fairly tall man who had fair skin, bright blue eyes, and spiky blonde hair. He was in a standard leaf ninja uniform with 2 bands each on both of his sleeves, a flak jacket, a forehead protector and sandals. He had a short-sleeved long white coat over his normal outfit, decorated with flames-like motifs on the edges, with the kanji for 4th Hokage written vertically down the back, and closed on the front by a thin orange rope. This man was Minato Namikaze, her father as well as the 4th Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. "I'm proud of you, my little princess," Minato said, smiling brightly. "Soon you'll be a badass ninja like your dad, right?" Narumi nodded. "Yeah." Kushina rolled her eyes at this but said nothing. "But I'm also gonna be the first female Hokage." Narumi pumped his fist in the air, smiling brightly. Kushina grinned while pointing a finger at her husband. "See, Minato. She's gonna be like her mother." Moving on to her daughter, she knelt down in front of her and put hands on her shoulders. "To be the first female Hokage was my dream. The dream that your father took away from me." She shot a glare at her husband, making the current Hokage nervous. "But I'm sure, you'll achieve that dream for me." She smiled while looking at her daughter. "Narumi Uzumaki, the 5th Hokage, has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" She wrapped her arms around her daughter's small frame and hugged her. Minato smiled at the scene and joined the 3-way hug between his family members. Smiling, both parents held their precocious daughter close. They looked a good example for a perfect and a happy family. But they were not. They had one member short to complete the whole family. Their son and Narumi's twin brother Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto was a 6-year-old little boy. He had red hair the same color as Kushina's and violent eyes. The boy was staring at the scene before him with sadness in his innocent eyes. Sometimes when his parents were so attentive of his twin sister, they would just forget about him. He was hoping that today would be the day they would finally acknowledge his existence and train him. He hoped that every day as long as he could remember. All he ever wanted was their acknowledgement, their approval, their acceptance. Every time he went up and asked his parents about his training, they would just tell him to leave them alone and continue to focus on Narumi's training, since they believed that she needed it more. His twin Narumi was the hero of the Hidden Leaf, the jailer of the 9 Tails, and many more nicknames that people of the Left Village had been given to her. She was perfect, according to most villagers and his parents. For Minato and Kushina, Natsumi was everything, while Naruto was nothing more than a child they lived with. Behind their behaviors had its roots in a well-known incident that happened 6 years ago. Flashback 6 years ago. Minato looked at the masked man who was responsible for everything that was happening within the Hidden Leaf Village's walls at that time. The man had short black hair. He wore a long hooded black cloak and a yellow-orange mask with a pattern that resembled a flame. The man first took hostage of his children after their births to prevent him from interfering. He then kidnapped his wife, the container of the 9-tailed fox. After extracting the beast from her and placing him under his control using his Sharingan eye, he summoned him into the middle of the Leaf Village to destroy it. It was a miracle. His wife survived after the extraction of tailed beast. The vitality inherent in the Uzumaki clan truly helped her. "But why are you doing this?" he asked, wanting to know the reason behind all of this madness. "Oh, you know. It's fun. It's part of my plan," the masked man said. Summoning a long chain from nowhere, He attached its both ends to his wrists. To start the war. To bring the peace. Minato narrowed his eyes at the masked man. Whoever he is incredible. He can control the 9 tails, wields space-time jutsu that exceed both second and my own, and clearly has evil intentions. He took his special 3-pointed kunai out. If I don't kill him now, he'll become a greater danger than the fox. He adjusted his grip on the kunai's handle. If I teleport back to the village, he'll follow me and things will get more chaotic. If he really is Madara, then I doubt he can summon the 9 tails very long. I'll just have to leave the village in the third's hands and finish him off right here. There's no hope for any of you, the masked man declared before he charged at Minato. Minato did the same, but the man became intangible, allowing Minato to phase through him. The masked man solidified again and spun around once Minato was behind him. He pulled the chain and wrapped it around Minato's chest. However, Minato chucked his kunai to a section of the forest and flashed away, letting the chain simply float in the air. The masked man's eyes widened slightly. Once again, Hokage slipped away from his grabs. Minato flashed beside his 3-pointed kunai and looked back at the man. He makes his body intangible to negate my attacks, and then solidifies to counterattack. My only shot is to try to trade hits with him. Controlling his breathing, his mind raced with possibilities and solutions. But attacking at all is a big risk for him. If he can keep the 9 tails summoned for a short time, he won't want this fight drag on. He spun around and charged again. It comes up to speed. Whoever strikes a split second earlier will win. They both charged at each other again, but this time, Minato threw one of his special kunai at the man, who as usual let it phase through him. They got even closer to each other. End of the kunai was almost all the way out the back of the man's head. The man went to grab Minato's shoulder. Minato already had a large blue sphere, Rasengan, on his hand. As the man was about to touch the fourth, the kunai slipped all the way out of his head. The masked man smiled behind his mask. Gosh! In a split second, Minato vanished in a flash, causing the man's eyes to expand. The blonde Hokage appeared behind the man and slammed the Rasengan down into the masked man's back before catching the kunai with his other hand. The man screamed in pain as he crashed into the ground. Damn it! He teleported to the kunai he just threw, he thought. That was the Flying Thunder God Jutsu level 2, Minato said proudly. He looked down and narrowed his eyes. The Rasengan had exploded, literally destroying the ground, but the man was nowhere near in sight. The masked man appeared on a slab of rock nearby. His arm was fluidly being kept separate from his body and a white substance was dripping from his wound. Before he could do anything about it, the fourth Hokage suddenly appeared in front of him and stabbed him in the stomach with a kunai, making him to spit blood into his mask. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu. He must have put that marking somewhere on my body. The masked man thought. He cursed himself for falling for such trick. Minato then placed his hand on the man's chest where markings suddenly sprouted from looking like a markings fit for a seal. A contract seal? The masked man recognized the seal immediately. Are you trying to pull the 9 tails free from my control? No, I already did, Minato said. He's no longer your weapon. In the distance where the 9-tailed fox was wreaking havoc, his eyes that held Sharingan because of his mind being under control of it, reverted to his red slit eyes. However, being tricked in such a way only caused his anger to rise more. The masked man jumped upward out of Minato's range. You deserve the title of the 4th Hokage. Managing to wound me and wrest the fox from my control in one move, he said. But someday it will be mine again. The fox and this whole world will bow to my will. He began to wrap himself in a vortex that appeared from his open eye hole in his mask. Many doors are still left open to me. Swirling himself into the vortex, he vanished from there. Something tells me he wasn't lying. Minato gazed at the place that was previously occupied by the masked man. With Kushina. Minato. Hurry up, Kushina said, sweat beads trickling down her skin. She was restraining the 9 tails with her chakra chains. It wasn't an easy feat for her. Just few hours before, she had given birth to twins and survived from the extraction of the tailed beast. Those two had taken almost all of her energy and adding the strain of holding the fox had too much for her. I can't hold him much longer. Minato was drawing a complex seal array on the stomach of a red-headed newborn baby, who was resting on a ceremonial throne. He was trying his best to complete the seal, as he knew his wife had almost no chakra left. "Please hold a minute, Kushina-chan," he said. "It's almost finished." He drew the last symbol. Done. Gathering all of his remaining chakra, he started making hand seal rapidly. "Minato, it's almost done." He finished a long sequence of hand seals and shouted, "Seal." In a bright flash, he sealed the nine-tailed fox into his newborn daughter Narumi. Present day. After everything settled down in the Leaf Village, Minato told the citizens of the Leaf that someone powerful had summoned the Nine Tails to destroy the village, but he defeated the beast and sealed it into his daughter, who would use the beast's power to protect the village. Most of people respected and loved Minato, so they easily accepted Narumi as the savior of their village. After that day, it was always Narumi. She got everything: fame, glory, love of villagers and both parents, while her brother Naruto, the son of the fourth Hokage and hero's brother, left to stand in the shadow of his parents and twin sister. Naruto absolutely hated it. "But how can I become a Hokage if there is no one here to spar with me to test my strength?" Narumi asked, folding her arms across her chest. For a child, it was really an intelligent question. Minato nodded in understanding. Without getting any fighting experience, she'd not become the best in the shinobi profession. Who will fight with her? His eyes fell on his son, who was watching them from a distance. After thinking about something, he called, "Naruto, come here." "Yes," Naruto replied as he approached toward his parents and sister. "Naruto, I want you to spar with your sister," Minato said. Naruto quickly nodded his head as he saw a good opportunity to prove his parents that he was worthy of their time and love. "Good." Minato turned to his daughter. "Now Narumi, you're going to spar with him, but do not forget to take it easy on him. Your brother is not strong like you." Naruto was deeply affected by his father's words. He clenched his fist in anger. "If I show them I'm not a weak, they'll love me like they do Natsumi." It was a childish thought of the 6-year-old child's mind. Kushina had a shocked look on her face. She couldn't believe what her husband had suggested. "We haven't started his training yet." She shook her head and quickly brushed it aside. "Well, it's just a simple spar. He will be fine." However, in that time, she didn't know how wrong she was. She would regret about it for the rest of her life. Naruto settled down into the fighting stance that he had been learning from a taijutsu scroll, while Natsumi took her own fighting stance that her parents had taught her. Minato gave them a signal and Naruto made the first move. He ran toward Narumi to punch her, but she simply moved away from his way and slammed him against the ground. He quickly pushed himself on all fours and kicked his left leg behind him. A huff told him he had hit the target. He jumped to his feet and noticed that his sister had already recovered from his attack. Narumi attacked her brother, throwing some fast punches that Naruto either blocked or dodged. She never stopped. Naruto blocked his sister some punches and sent 3 back and a knee to her gut that forced her on her knees. Using this opportunity, he kicked her in the side, sending her rolling a few feet from her previous spot. Naruto was happy. He had finally managed to beat his sister. He stared at his parents for their approval, but he saw them looking behind him toward his sister. He turned toward Narumi and felt his body shivering in fear. She was blazing with an evil red aura. She suddenly disappeared and he felt a sharp pain in the jaw as Narumi punched him there. Before he could recover and defend himself, she slashed him on his chest with her new razor-sharp claws, leaving a deep wound there. She slashed once again with her other hand on his face. Naruto cried in pain as he felt burning sensation in areas where wounds were. His entire body felt drained. He barely had strength to defend. However, the fight was not over yet. Before Minato and Kushina could realize what Narumi was doing, Natsumi was in front of her brother. She gathered a small amount of corrupted red chakra in her palm and delivered a palm strike to his head, which sent him flying backwards into a tree. Naruto barely had the strength to keep awake. All he could feel was pain, especially from his chest as he laid on the blood-soaked ground. He was conscious, so he could hear his parents calling his sister's name. The last thing he saw before he lost consciousness was some blurry images of his parents picking up his unconscious sister and forgetting about him again. He felt betrayed and that made the pain even worse. "No. Not like this. I don't want to die. I don't want to be forgotten." Hospital. Minato and Kushina were in the hospital as they stood in the hallway. Medical ninja team was examining their children. The incidents had really shaken up them, as they hadn't expected a simple spar would end up like this. Their both children were now in the hospital and they didn't know anything about their health. The sound of a click caught their attention. The door opened to reveal the head medic Nin. He walked out of the room and closed the door lightly behind him. "Hokage-sama," he said. "Kids, are they all right?" Minato asked, worry clearly visible on his face. "Hokage-sama, your daughter is safe. She has a small case of chakra exhaustion. She'll be back to full health in a few hours," the head medic Nin informed. After hearing those words, Minato and Kushina felt a huge weight lifted off their shoulder. "Your son, on the other hand." The man trailed off with a frown on his face, making both parents too concerned about their son. "What happened to him?" Kushina asked with worry laced in her voice. Her hands were shaking a little. "I'm not sure if he'll fully recover from it." The head medic's Nin took pause before looking at both parents. "He has lost a large amount of blood, but it is no longer a major problem. The problem is the Nine Tails chakra. The chakra your daughter has left in your son's body has done some serious damage to his important organs, especially his both eyes. They are damaged to beyond repair. His body is further shut down and entered a comatose state. I'm afraid there is nothing I can do." "Forgive me," he said. "Only Tsunade-sama can help you with this. She is the only medic who has the medical skill to possibly heal your son completely." He left them standing there alone and went to check his other patients. When two snapped out of their daze, they rushed toward their son's room. Tears welled in their eyes when they saw him. He had an oxygen mask on his face to assist him in breathe. His entire chest was covered in bandages as well as his left arm, his both eyes, the left side of his face and down his neck slightly. His chest had a few wires attached to it to monitor his heart rate and his breathing. Bandages that warped around his chest and both eyes were soaked in blood, telling them seriousness of his injuries. "This is my fault," Kushina was openly crying. "What kind of mother am I? I took my daughter to the hospital for her small chakra exhaustion problem but forgot about my son, who was drowning in his own blood." Minato wasn't feeling much better than she was. He looked down at his feet in shame as he clenched his fist. "I'm such a terrible father. How could I let something like that happen to my son? It's my entire fault." Within the hospital room, "So how did this happen?" Crow-masked Anbu asked. He had short black hair and wore standard Anbu uniform. His partner, mouse-masked Anbu, turned his head toward him. He had brown-colored hair and just like his partner, he wore standard Anbu uniform. "Hokage-sama's daughter lost control over the fox's chakra and attacked her brother under the influence of it," he said. Crow nodded and looked straight at the blonde-haired boy they were guarding through the small glass window built into the door. 2 weeks had passed. Condition of the body. Condition of the son of their leader was still critical but stable. "Poor boy, I really do pity him," he said. Mouse nodded as he knew the condition of the boy and it was so bad. He just hoped the boy would wake up soon, healthy, not with some traumatic experience. In another dimension, Naruto Otsutsuki looked at the battlefield laid before him. Shinobi of all 5 nations had originally band together to stop his grandfather, Madara Uchiha, but was futile in the end since basically 90% of the ninjas were killed in merely 3 hours since the war had started. It wasn't until the end that Naruto had decided to drop his whole hero facade and reveal who he really was. A major shock to the whole alliance since the whole thing was to protect him and the 8-tailed Jinchuriki but were really being played into a trap. Though he didn't expect for Sasuke to revive the 4 Hokage, apparently he thought they were still playing that facade still. It was just a time stopper since they all fell one by one with his sperm donor being the first by his hands, then Tobirama with Naruto using his chakra rods to hold him in place before absorbing his soul. Hiruzen died by Sasuke's hands with a Chidori going through the old man's chest, and Hashirama had died by his grandfather's hands since it was obvious that Madara was just too powerful and Hashirama had lost his touch. With the 4 Hokages gone, the shinobi had slowly started to lose their confidence and soon enough most backed out and left running if it weren't for Naruto and Sasuke killing them easily. All that was left then was Tsunade, Konoha 11, Gaara and his siblings, Mei, Onoki, and A and Killer B. But like the 4 Hokage, each fell one by one. Tsunade had died by Dan and Nawaki's hands when Naruto had revived them. Konoha 11 had died by Sasuke's hand in order: Sakura, Sai, Hinata, Kiba, Shino, Choji, Shikamaru, Ino, Tenten, Neji, and Lee. Naruto had killed the Sand Trio with Temari being first since he was superior in her Futon, Wind Release. Then was Kankuro with him dying by Naruto's Kumonju. 9 Masked Beasts. A technique that he had learned from Menma in the Genjutsu world. And lastly Gaara had died with him willing to die for Naruto since the whole thing was planned. The only thing he wanted was to be reunited with his mother again and was about to happen when Chio, his siblings, Suna, and those of Konoha revived him but now he can be. Naruto will always be his best friend. And lastly the other cages died by Madara's hands, easy as 123. Once the annoyances were done with the exception of Gaara, Naruto used his Rinnegan to absorb the Shinju. And while it could have gone right, something happened in which he assumed was the Shinju fighting back. Though he had won in the end, as a last resort, the Shinju had used overwhelming power and caused Naruto to start dissolving in particles. What the fuck? Naruto said as he looked at Madara and Sasuke, whom quickly thought of something and grabbed his shoulder since they still weren't dissolving, and like Naruto they too had started to dissolve. Void. Naruto, Sasuke, and Madara looked towards where they were and by the looks of it, it seemed as if they were in a black void with nothing in it besides them. It seems like in a last resort, the Shinju overwhelmed your body with Biju chakra that caused your body to slowly start dissolving in particles, Madara said as Naruto nodded. Yeah, but that was still a stupid mistake, because either way I would have still gotten its power and knowledge. The Otsutsuki said with a smirk and Sasuke smirked too. Though despite the fact that the Shinju made a stupid mistake, Sasuke was cut off by a light appearing 10 feet away from them. Weird, Naruto looked at the light. He looked at Madara and Sasuke before he nodded. He went forward before he was grabbed by the shoulders by Madara and Sasuke and went forward. -6-year-old Naruto's mindscape. Naruto, Sasuke, and Madara looked to see where they were again and by the looks of it, they were in a sewer. Though Sasuke and Madara were confused, Naruto instantly recognized the place. It was his mindscape, but question was how? How? Naruto asked as the other two activated their Sharingan. Looking around more, they heard faint crying. Due to his senses being high because of the furball that used to be within him, he started walking forward to where he could hear crying coming from, with the other two following him. When they arrived to where it was, they were surprised. In front of them was a red-headed boy with 3 whisker marks on each side of his cheeks and red puffy violet eyes. Boy, Naruto said, catching the little kid's attention. His sudden presence caused Naruto to look up at the man and the other two with him with his blood-stained cheeks. Who are you? He asked, frightened by the men's power. From a young age, he could detect the presence of other people through their chakra, so he could clearly sense amount of chakra the men had. It was vast, which had frightened him. Not even his mother and father combined had that much chakra. Naruto looked at the kid and crouched down before wiping the kid's tears away. Why are you crying? He asked, trying to be not that cold toward the crying child. My parents, Naruto stated in anger and sadness in them. They care more about my sister than me. To them, I'm nobody. They don't even care about whether I live or die. He began to sob and started to tell them everything about his parents, his twin sister, and his parents' favoritism toward her. The 3 men looked at the kid with pity. Tell me, child, what is your name? Madara spoke. The redhead child looked at them with his bloodshot eyes. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said as the 3 men looked at him with a bit of surprise. I see, Naruto said before he looked at said child in the eyes. Tell me, kid, what would you say if I can help you get revenge on your parents? Since it seems like they don't care about you at all by the looks of it, Naruto asked as the kid looked at him with hopeful eyes. You can help me get revenge on them? He said with hope in his eyes. He had found out the hard way that his family didn't care about him. Naruto nodded. Hi, but in order to do this we will have to merge together, that way we can get revenge on them, Naruto said with an evil tiny smile. The little redhead didn't care if he had to sell his soul to Yami, he wanted to show his parents that they made a mistake in ignoring him. The kid stood up and nodded. I'll do it, he said as Naruto smirked before putting his hand on the little kid's chest, and soon enough he started merging with the kid. Naruto knew the kid's soul would never be repaired, it was already broken. So while they would merge, he will receive the kid's memories and Bodhi, but Naruto will be the one who will be in control. A few seconds later and in front of Sasuke and Madara was Naruto in the little kid's body. Naruto looked at his body and smirked. It will take a little getting used to, but nothing he couldn't handle. He went through the kid's memories and in a second he looked at Sasuke and Madara and smirked. Guess what, Sasuke and Gigi? Said Uchiha's rose a brow. Seems like I won't be the only one to receive a new body, he said with a smile as they smirked. Naruto soon left to at least do what the kid had wanted while at the same time doing what he wanted. Back to reality. Naruto Uzumaki's body was resting on a hospital bed. No one else was in the room, so they weren't able to see black glow that was emitting from his body. His body started to slightly alter and change before the glow vanished completely. Naruto slowly lifted his right hand up and removed the oxygen mask from the face. From the smell of medicine, he could tell that he was in the hospital. Fuck. He always hated hospitals. He disconnected all wires that attached to his body and sat up with his legs dangling over the side of the bed. Grabbing the edge of bed, he stood up on his feet, hobbled toward the bathroom, almost falling on his way, and stood in front of a mirror. It was a new body, but he will get through it. How he had done this with the bandage covering his eyes was a mystery. He took off the bandage from his eyes and opened his eyes slowly, letting them adapt to the light. He saw that his eyes were completely fine. There was no sign of any damage that was done from the Jinchuriki. He then began to remove remaining bandages. When his body was cleared, he saw some scars on his face and body. And with quick medical techniques, all scars began to heal rapidly and the skin began to patch itself up. Within seconds, his scars had disappeared completely. Finally, he muttered silently to himself. He splashed handfuls of water onto his face and looked up at his reflection. He could see some changes made themselves through. His hair had black streaks and his violet eyes slightly became a bit darker. Meanwhile at the Hokage Tower, Minato sat in his office, signing for the 100th time that day. It had been almost 6 months since Narumi had lost control over the fox's chakra and hurt her brother Naruto badly, who was still in a coma, but out of critical condition. He turned to the only picture he had his entire family on it. In it, he was holding his wife while their hands were on one of Natsume's each shoulder. Naruto was off to the side with a sad look on his face. He looked away as that picture reminded him of mistakes he had made with his family. His mistakes had been mostly affecting Naruto more than anyone else in the family and he had so blind to see this. He remembered why he did this. It was all because of the prophecy that Toads had made. He had believed that it was about his daughter. That she was the child of prophecy. He thought he had made the right choice by choosing one of his children over the other in hopes of ensuring the safety of the world. However, he had forgotten that he had been pushing his son aside by doing this. Suddenly, something unprecedented happened. The glass around Naruto's face cracked. It was just an ominous sign. It worried him greatly. "Minato!" A voice called out urgently. Minato turned the head toward the direction the voice came from. There stood the one person he hadn't seen in a while, his sensei Jiraiya. Even after all these years, he could say his teacher hadn't changed much in an appearance-wise. He was still a tall man with waist-length, spiky white hair usually tied back into a ponytail, with 2 shoulder-length bangs that framed both sides of his face. He also had red lines that ran down from his eyes and wore a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil, which denoted his affiliation with Mount Myoboku. "Sensei, what are you doing here?" he asked, as he watched the man jump in through the window. "Did you find Tsunade-sama?" After the head medics had told him that only Tsunade could possibly help his son, he immediately contacted his sensei to find her. Jiraiya was a spymaster and a former teammate of Tsunade, so he was the only person who could possibly find her. Jiraiya shook the head negatively. "Sorry, Minato. I even tried Toads to contact her slugs summoned to send an emergency message to her, but it also failed." Minato slammed his hands on the table and stood up. "Then why are you wasting time here, sensei?" "Naruto." Jiraiya cut in with seriousness in his voice. "Minato, it's important." "What is more important than finding Tsunade for Naruto?" "Minato," Jiraiya said. He knew his student was upset and worried. He needed Tsunade's help to heal his son who was in a coma for past 6 months. "The prophecy has changed." Minato felt a pang of pain in his chest. "What does it say now?" he asked, not really wanting to find out. He swallowed hard. "Well." Meanwhile at the Uzumaki mansion. It was a big mansion, not big as Uchiha or Hyuga, but still big enough for 4 people. At the moment, Kushina was sitting down at the couch in the living room while looking at the only picture she had her entire family together. It was the identical picture her husband had in his office. She still couldn't believe what they had done. She couldn't call herself a good mother. Hell, she couldn't even call herself a mother at all after what she had done. How could I have pushed one child away in the favor of the other? She took one last look at the family picture, but before she could leave, something unexpected happened. The glass of the picture frame cracked across Naruto's face. She felt a slight pain in her chest. Kushina. Minato's voice called her name, as he flashed into the living room. With Narumi. Narumi was currently having tea with her friends who were chatting happily. Next to her sat the only other person whose family had blonde hair, Ino Yamanaka. On her other side sat her timid friend, a girl with pretty indigo hair color and lavender eyes, Hinata Hyuga. She smiled and reached for her teacup, but when her finger touched it, the cup cracked before it shattered completely. A huge pain swelled up in her stomach at the same time and she fainted on the spot. The last she heard before losing her consciousness was her friends calling her name again and again. Inside Narumi's mind, there was a gigantic cage as ominous shadows swirled in the darkness. A single red eye opened. It came forward, showing its massive figure and 9 tails. The 9-tailed fox had sensed a powerful chakra that belonged to an unknown eternity. His eyes flashed. This chakra? It's powerful than the old man and her combined. He rose to his feet and roared. He sent his chakra toward the cage, in an attempt to break it, but the seal blocked it effectively. This entity was too powerful and he did not want to stand in said entity's way. Time skip Uzumaki Mansion. In the mansion, in Narumi's bedroom, Kushina sat next to her daughter's bed watching her rest. Minato stood next to her, his hand was on her shoulder. What happened to her? Kushina asked, worriedly, stroking her daughter's red hair. We checked the seal and it looks okay. Minato tapped his chin in a deep thought. I think the 9 tails has tried to break the seal again, he said before asking, question is why now? They were so concerned about her. After hearing the new prophecy, they couldn't get it out of their head. What did it mean? How would it influence the future? Suddenly, a dog-masked Anbu walked inside the room. He had spiky silver hair and wore standard Anbu armor. Sensei. Yes, Kakashi? Minato said to his only living student. Sensei, your son, Kakashi said panting, he has woken up from a coma. The head medic said he was healthy. After hearing that, a smile appeared on Minato's face while Kushina shed some tears. That was the first good news they'd heard. The past 6 months had been the worst and painful times of their lives. Though in the end it taught them the importance of the family and how bad some of their decision could affect their children. Thanks Kakashi, Minato said, you can go now. Kakashi nodded and walked out of the room. Thank goddess, he is awake, Kushina said, relieved to know her son was awake. I hope you'll forgive us, Minato said, as he realized they had something to take care of. What they didn't know was that they were already too late for forgiveness. Once his loss is somebody's gain. Naruto looked at the open doors in front of him. While he was sure that the Anbu had already gone to inform Minato and Kushina, he just didn't feel like waiting to be smothered and begged for forgiveness by those 2 weak ninjas. Instead, he had gotten out of his bed and started searching for the kid's friend whom was another soul that was broken. 6-year-old Sasuke Uchiha. Apparently like the kid that Naruto had tricked into giving his body to. Little Sasuke was also being ignored by his family by his twin, Satsuki Uchiha. Izan always seemed to spend more time with the little girl rather than her little brother. His mother seemed to give favoritism. His father liked her more rather than him just because he had yet to perfect Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu, fire release. Great fireball technique. And had yet to activate his Sharingan like his sister had done and Genius sister did. In total, the little Uchiha felt broken from the neglect and hatred towards his family. He was the perfect tool for Sasuke to trick. So quickly getting back into the kid's clothes, Naruto stood up and went out the hospital. With speed no kid should have at his age, Naruto arrived at the pond that the kid and the little Uchiha always met up. And like he thought, the kid was there. Hey Sasuke. Naruto called out towards the little Uchiha as said kid turned around and met Naruto. His little head nodded. Naruto, he greeted. Naruto went towards the little kid and sat next to him. They still ignoring you? Naruto asked as Sasuke was a bit surprised by the sudden question before nodded a bit. Hi, the little kid said slowly and low. The Otsutsuki stood up and looked at the child, weak-willed Uchiha. Tell me Sasuke, what would you say if I were to tell you that I can give you the power you desire to make your family regret what they did to you? Naruto asked as little Sasuke looked at him with disbelief in his eyes. And you don't have to believe me, what do you say? He asked as he extended his arms, with a tiny devious smile on his lips. Little Sasuke looking at the hand and then Naruto quickly took his hand. His parents didn't care, his Imouto treated him coldly, and his Nei-san just ignored him as always, so what was there to lose? Naruto smirked before he transported himself and little Sasuke to his mindscape. Naruto's mindscape. Little Sasuke and Naruto appeared in front of a sewer and like most kids his age, the little Uchiha started to get scared. He was about to scream when he felt a hand on his shoulder making said kid turn around, only to see Naruto and two older men behind him. Where am I? The little Uchiha asked Naruto, whom smirked in return. Well, I did say I can give you power, Naruto said as the kid realized it and nodded a bit hesitantly. Good, now, I want you to meet someone very special, he said as he pointed to the older Sasuke behind him. Said grown-up Uchiha looked at the kid before he smirked, truly weak-willed and broken. It was then that Naruto decided to talk. This Sasuke is my brother. A person who can give you the power needed to help you in your goal, Naruto said as the kid looked at the older Sasuke with awe. Sasuke looked at the kid with amusement and pity. Oh well. He motioned for the kid to come over to him and like as if he was following his idol, the kid followed. Are you sure you are willing to do this? While it might be a stupid-ass question, since he already knew the answer to his own question, he didn't want to seem as the bad guy right now. I mean, after all, the kid looked at him in awe. The little Uchiha looked at the bigger one and nodded with determination. He will show his family why they made the mistake of loving his sister over him. Sasuke smirked. Hold still, he said as he put his hand on the kid's chest before they started to merge. While it was weird to talk to his little self, he didn't care. All he needed was the body. And soon enough Sasuke was in control. He had the kid's memories, and all the knowledge from this brand new world they now resided in, and let's just say that he was disappointed. This world is way weaker than the world they were born in. Oh well. He looked at his new body and tried to move around, only for him to fall down. Fucking weak-ass kid couldn't have trained more rather than look at his family with hope and desire. Naruto and Madara both were amused by the sight. Yeah, getting used to a new body wasn't always gonna be in your favor. Alright, you can work on this on the outside. Minato sent out Anbu after me. They're 10 yards away and approaching, Naruto said as Sasuke nodded and Madara merely closed his eyes. Outside mindscape. Both Naruto and Sasuke opened their eyes. Everything was the same as before. I mean, it's not like shit would change in a mere second. Quickly getting their things intact, Naruto smirked towards Sasuke before he started to walk away. Only showed 3% of your power, Sasuke. I mean, it's not like they can stop you or me, he said as Sasuke smirked and also started to walk away. Being seen with the child of the 4th Hokage will not be seen well. 2 minutes later, Naruto and Sasuke were gone as the Anbu arrived to the spot they were at. Slow douchebags. And again they started to search for the eldest of the Namikaze siblings. Uchiha compound. Sasuke arrived to his old compound, bringing some beautiful memories back. Don't get him wrong, he still hates this world, but he missed some Uchiha that didn't deserve to die in his old world. Hopefully the Uchiha massacre won't happen by the orders of the elders, and die rather by his hand, but he will choose who dies and survives. Going to his house, he saw some differences, but other than that the whole compound was still the same. Once arriving, with his sensory skills, he knew that his whole family was in there, eating happily, not even noticing that he wasn't there. TCH, bigots, he said, not caring if others heard him. Opening the door loudly to make his presence known, he made his way to the backyard, ignoring everyone. The Uchiha family inside heard the door opening loudly and turned to see who it was, only to be surprised that the only male kid in the family was the one who came in. They thought he was with them? Izan, snapping out of her thoughts, let out a nervous smile and chuckle. Oh Oto, why weren't you with us? She asked, but her question was ignored by her little brother, who didn't even acknowledge her or the family. Fugaku, seeing the disrespect, aimed ki to Sasuke to scare him but was amazed that he just brushed it off. Sasuke, do not ignore your sister, he said in a commanding tone. Satsuki stood up and pointed a finger at him. Yeah. Don't disrespect Ne-sama, she shouted towards her twin brother. But like Izan, both of them were ignored, further making them agitated. Makoto just stood there and watched the whole thing with a small frown. Why was he ignoring them? Fugaku, having enough of his son ignoring him, stood up and went towards him. Once he was close enough, he got hit in the stomach hard that sent him to wall with great impact, to the point where he left a huge hole. And the funny thing about the whole hit was that Sasuke didn't even stop walking. Izan, Satsuki, and Makoto quickly rushed towards Fugaku to help him, but their bodies immediately stopped. Sasuke, stopping, changed his route and went towards the downed Fugaku, who was trying to stand up, but the hit had made it so he couldn't. He went past the three females and looked at Fugaku with amusement. Funny how the great clan head is on the floor right before his own weak son, Sasuke said in a mocking tone that further angered the other. Try all you might to stand up and teach me a lesson on how to respect my superiors, but in the end. He leaned down and looked at Fugaku with his Sharingan activated. You will be down at my feet. His Sharingan evolved into his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. A 3 intersecting ellipses with 3 spiraling curves in the middle. Fugaku, seeing this, had fear run inside him. His weak son had the more prestige form of the Sharingan, and he, Fugaku, was now the one who was weak. Sasuke, seeing the fear on Fugaku's face, smirked and lessened the chakra on his eyes to make them only 3 tomo and started walking away, but stopped when he was near Satsuki and Izan. He looked at Izan and smirked. He made her go down to his level and he leaned forward. Things just got more difficult than before for you. You two-sided bitch. He whispered into her ear as she became wide-eyed for 2 things. His Sharingan was 3 tomo in second. He knew that she was the spy. Sasuke then looked at his twin and had a smug face. He had 3 tomo while she only had 1. Who's better now? He said mockingly, as she was a bit peeved but mostly shocked and filled with fear. Lastly, he looked at Makoto and snarled, such a fucking weak mother. He walked past them and went to the backyard, all while having a smirk on his face. Naruto. After the Anbu had found him, they took him back to his parents. He let out a sigh as he had to wait outside Narumi's door. This was fucking boring. The Anbu besides him knocked on the door to let their presence be known, again. A "come in" could be heard from the other side, and Naruto quickly became annoyed. He always hated Minato's voice and presence. But he could do nothing for now, he was still in his 6-year-old body. But there was one good thing that came from being in a new body and a new life. Kushina. Quickly he made a sinister smile and it quickly faded away. Where he was from, she was lucky she had left only partial chakra in his body that made it so she would only have a minutes to meet him. But now, oh, now she was alive and now he can truly break her. As he and the Anbu entered Narumi's room, he saw that his twin was on bed with an ice pack on her head and her skin was pale. He narrowed his eyes and quickly activated his Sharingan, but deactivated it quickly so no one would notice. And he saw that Kurama was the cause of it. He was trying to escape the seal. No doubt because of his presence. Naruto turned his attention to Minato and Kushina and saw that they had hopeful smiles on their faces. He looked at them with a neutral face and walked forward, making the 2 parents gain hope in their hearts, but it vanished when he changed his direction and walked towards his twin. Their faces changed from hopeful to confusion and fear of what he might to her, since she was the reason he was in the hospital in the first place. Once Naruto was in front of Narumi, he looked at her in pity. He chuckled, what a weakling, can't even keep the Kyuubi at bay, he said as the others in the room became wide-eyed. How could he know when they even haven't told the children that Narumi had the Kyuubi within her? As Minato was about to speak up, he saw that Naruto was not done. Naruto grabbed the blanket she had on her and threw it away. He grabbed her shirt and revealed her stomach where her seal was, making the others in the room tense. I'm still amazed though, he said as the others became confused. How is it that Obito managed to not only get the Kyuubi once again but fail once again? He asked to himself, not caring if the others heard him. I mean, it's not like he cared. Minato, hearing his dead student's name, became confused. Why would Naruto say that Obito managed to get the Kyuubi? As if Obito was the masked man. Kakashi, hearing his dead teammate's name, tensed. Kushina was also confused on hearing her husband's student, but her confusion was overwhelmed on how Naruto knew where exactly the seal was. They snapped out of their thoughts when they saw Naruto lean forward to the seal and saw him speak something they couldn't hear to the seal as if he was speaking to someone. Once he finished his last words, Narumi started scream out in pain as if her body was in fire. Minato, Kushina, Kakashi, and the other Anbu quickly went to her to try and see what was wrong, all while Naruto walked away but not before giving Kushina one last look at her body and smirked. This time no one and nothing will stop him from fully breaking her. Nothing. But first, he walked to his room and once he was there, he quickly used Kamui and disappeared in a vortex to the place where he had basically grown up while his clone was in Konoha. His Jiji's lair, where he knows Obito will be. Minato, the fourth Hokage, sat behind his desk trying to do his paperwork. The key word here was, trying. He placed his pen back down and sighed in frustration. He sat back into his chair and rubbed his temples. He stared out the window of his office as he thought about everything that happened in his life in the past 6 years. 6 years. That he did not like to think about. Those reminded him of his constant failure as a Hokage as well as father. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop these thoughts of flashing over and over in his mind. He remembered how everything changed from good to bad and how helpless he had been to prevent it. He remembered his first failure as a Hokage. The Hyuga incidents are commonly known as Hyuga affair. The Cloud Village always wanted to obtain the Byakugan and its secrets, so they attempted to kidnap 7-year-old Hinata. The shinobi was killed in his attempt by Hinata's father Hiyashi Hyuga, only to discover the person was the head ninja of the Cloud at the time, who was in the leaf to sign the treaty between two villages. The Cloud denied all accusations of the kidnapping, and demanded the body of Hiyashi as compensation for the death of their head ninja and as per the stipulations of the treaty. Hisashi Hyuga decided to go in his brother's place as they were twins and the Cloud would not be able to tell the difference. This had another advantage, besides saving the life of the head of the clan. Hisashi's seal would seal his Byakugan upon his death, safeguarding its secrets from Kumo. Despite Minato and Hiyashi's protest, Hisashi chose on his own to do this, not only for the clan and village, but for his brother as well. Next witness of his failure was the Uchiha clan massacre that happened 2 years ago. The Uchiha had intended to overthrow the Hokage. However, knowing that a coup d'état would only trigger the beginning of another ninja world war, Izan Uchiha had come up with the idea that she would kill off the Uchiha clan to make it so that the coup d'état wouldn't happen, something that Danzo and the two elders liked. But before they could make it so, they had received word from them Anbu that 2 unknown ninja had killed off the whole Uchiha clan, only leaving Mikoto, Satsuki, Shisui, Izan, and a few others alive. Minato immediately sent out Anbu to search for the 2 culprits, but it was too late. The Uchiha population had gone down drastically. Minato felt a pang of guilt in chest. Both Hisashi and the Uchiha clan paid a heavy price for his failure. He looked down at the photo that he had on his desk. His family photo. He picked it up and traced his fingers lightly over his son's picture. His son constantly reminded him that he failed to fulfill his job as a father. Naruto had become increasingly distant and cold to everyone, even to his twin sister, since he woke up from the coma. As far as Minato knew, Naruto used to be a sweet and bright child, something he and Kushina had failed to see at that time, but these days, he would hardly see a smile on Naruto's face. His son had become a shadow of his old self. He had no one to blame but himself for this, because it was his foolish mistakes that had caused his son so much pain in the past. Then there was his daughter Natsumi. Ever since the Nine Tails chakra nearly caused her brother's death, she had developed a great fear of losing control over the fox's chakra again and causing harm to those around her. She didn't want to use it again. The incidents also created another problem that he didn't know how to resolve. Someone leaked the information about this incident in public, making fear run the Leaf citizens' mind. It caused them to doubt of Minato's words of Natsumi being their savior. They hadn't shown any real open hostility towards her yet because of her being his child, but Minato had seen a slight change in their behavior toward his daughter. His train of thought interrupted by a quiet knock on the door. "Come in," he said. He saw the former Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was somewhere around 68 years old, walk in his office. He was a light-skinned man of below-average stature with gray hair. Then he noticed his least favorite people behind Hiruzen, Homura Mitokado and Kaharu Utatane. They were around the same age as Hiruzen. Homura was gray hair, a beard man with glasses and had a strong jawline of facial structure. Next to him was Kaharu Utatane. She had gray hair. Her hair was pulled back in a twin bun locked by a traditional Japanese hairpin with 2 pearls dangling off the side. 2 of them were part of the Leaf's Elder Council. Hiruzen-sama and Honorable Elders, what can I do for you? Minato asked, showing some respect to the former Hokage and his ex-teammates. He gestured for them to take a seat. They gladly accepted his offer. Hiruzen pulled his pipe out of his sleeve and lit it with a quick application of fire chakra. Minato, he put it in his mouth and inhaled in, before releasing a cloud of smoke from his mouth. We are here to discuss about the upcoming graduation exam. Adjusting his glasses with his thumb, Homura said, as you already know, most of the students in today's graduation exam are the heirs of some of the clans. There are also the last Uchiha children and your children, Kaharu added. Your daughter is a Jinchuriki and your son, he is by far the most genius and powerful kid his age along with Sasuke Uchiha. He is a prodigy and a natural genius. He's all qualities to become a genin even chunin right now, but the reason he isn't a genin, chunin yet is because of you Minato, Homura said, as he gave him a glare, showing he didn't like that decision of his leader. You didn't allow him to take an early graduation test. Minato narrowed eyes at Homura. He was too young that time, Homura-san, he said in a harsh tone to prove his point. He wasn't ready to become a genin. However, he had another reason, which was different from he had told Homura. Flashback 4 years ago. Both Naruto and Natsumi were 8 years old at that time. Kushina was standing in the hallway. She was not dressed in ninja gear, instead wearing an expensive-looking kimono, silk green in color with brown stitching at the hems. On her delicate feet was pair of silk slippers, a few inches high for extra height. She was just thinking about her son. She felt Naruto didn't want to part of the family anymore. Whenever he came home from the academy, either he would go to his room or he would drop his stuff off and leave until dinner. Even at dinner, he would stay silent and focus on his dinner. When they walked around the village, he would keep a distance between them while remaining quiet and emotionless. She questioned whether he had any friends at all besides Sasuke, whom she also felt was the same as Naruto. Before the incident, she had believed Natsumi needed extra attention because of her experience with the Nine Tails. As a former Jinchuriki, she knew how hard to control the Nine Tails chakra, but now, she didn't know. Kushina-chan, Minato called, as he flashed inside the room using his famous jutsu. Are you ready for the festival? Yes, she said sadly. She was not really in the mood to go to the festival. Minato easily noticed something was wrong. What's wrong? It's Naruto. Oh, he knew his son was a painful topic to his wife. It would always bring tears to her eyes. He hasn't forgiven us yet, Minato-kun. Her eyes looked as crystal blue eyes. Those eyes would always give her strength when she needed it. Don't lose hope. I know he will forgive us, eventually. He put a hand on her shoulder to comfort her. Where is he now? I don't know. I haven't seen him since breakfast. A noise from upstairs caught couple's attention. They saw their daughter walking down the stairs. She dressed a traditional red kimono and pair of silk slippers. She stood ready to go to the festival. You looked beautiful, Haim. Ready to go to the festival? Minato asked cheerfully, trying to lighten the mood. Yes, Tu-san. I'm ready to take all prizes that I'll get after winning every game, Natsumi said, as she walked toward them. She noticed that her brother wasn't there with her parents. Hey, where is Naruto Ni-chan? She asked, looking around to search her brother. Before Minato and Kushina could open their mouths to answer her question, the front door opened and Naruto cautiously walked inside. His clothes were ragged up and had dirt spots on them. Being an experienced Junin and Hokage, both Kushina and Minato could tell that he had done some heavy training. Minato smiled and said, Naruto, get ready. We are going to the festival. Naruto raised his eyebrow at this. No thanks, he replied in his bored tone, and he began to walk upstairs towards his bedroom. Kushina was very stubborn, she refused to take no for an answer. She ran after her son with Minato following shortly behind her. Naruto. She called out towards him. Naruto stopped and turned back to see both his so-called parents running toward him. What do you want? He asked. Kushina stopped in front of him and asked, Why, Naruto? Why don't you want to come with us? We're family. A family? You are joking, right? Naruto laughed. Since when were we ever family? He replied harshly before he walked into his bedroom and closed the door in front of their faces. Naruto. He hates us. Naruto's unkind words nearly brought tears to Kushina's eyes. Minato pulled her into a hug and consoled her as best as he could. He sighed. He hated to see her like this. Let's go. We've to go to attend the festival, he said. Kushina looked at her husband and asked, why? As a Hokage, it is my duty to attend public events. She nodded. She didn't like it, but she was going to do this for sake of her husband and daughter. They walked downstairs and saw their daughter crying. Natsumi sobbed. It's my fault. He hates us because of me. She cried harder, bringing her knees to her chest and wrapping her arms around them. No doubt, she had heard everything. Kushina went to her and knelt down beside her. She hugged her tightly. It's not your fault. If it's anyone's fault, it's ours. She wiped off the tears from her face. She looked up at Minato and gave him a nod. Minato went forward and grabbed his wife and daughter's shoulders. He used his famous jutsu and flashed away with them. Ooh. For the last hour, Naruto was practicing his taijutsu katas in the private training ground, which was within the compound. His every motion, every gesture was perfectly fluid, balanced and at just the right speed. His form was perfect. Suddenly, he stopped doing everything and stood motionless for a moment. He narrowed his eyes in a particular direction. Did that failure forget to secure the compound? Ooh, that was way too easy, the bear-masked shinobi said mockingly. Quiet, you idiot, the cat-masked shinobi said. We are all in the hidden leaf, especially in the Yellow Flash's house. So keep your voice down. We already know he's in that festival with his family, the deer-masked shinobi said. So, what's the big deal? Shut up, all of you, the last shinobi said, who seemed to be their leader. He had tiger mask on his face. I can sense a chakra signature from inside, and apparently he was also censor of their little group. They were 4 shinobi. All 4 of them had large black hooded cloak to cover their bodies and the hidden stone symbol carved on their masks, pointing out they were ninja for Iwagakure. Who is it? Is it the Yellow Flash or his wife? Cat asked. He wasn't ashamed to admit that he was afraid of being near the Yellow Flash's house. His team was a stealth specialist team, not a combat specialist team. Neither he nor his teammates were ready to face the shinobi like Yellow Flash and his wife's caliber. I could have easily recognized their chakra signatures if one of them were here. Tiger took a pause as he concentrated to find more about the chakra signature. No, it's not either of them. Cat let out a breath of relief he didn't know he was holding. It's an unknown chakra signature, even though it seems to share some characteristics with Kushina Uzumaki and something darker. Really dark, Tiger finished with a bit of fear in his voice. Yellow Flash's wife? Deer asked. He got a nod from his leader. Let's go and find more about it. Maybe we could use that person to our advantage. They all followed Tiger's lead, who had used his sensor skill to find the chakra source. He led his team towards some sort of training ground. Okay. I wasn't expecting this, Bear said, watching a blonde boy going through some katas. He looks so familiar. Deer carefully looked at Boy's some features and compared it with the 4th Hokage's features. That brat has some features of the Yellow Flash but mostly has features of Kushina. Now you mention it, he looks a lot of like that Uzumaki, Bear said, observing the boy's all features. Could he be her son? Cat said. All 4 of them exchanged looks and they agreed with that he was most likely Hokage and Kushina's son. They kept themselves concealed for now and watched him train. He's very good, Tiger said, as he watched the boy's taijutsu style that seemed highly fluid and perfect for high-speed movement. Come on and kill him, Bear said. He absolutely hated the boy's father, who had humiliated the Hidden Stone Village in the 3rd Shinobi War. It'll be our only chance to get revenge on his bastard father. Baka, what about the mission? We were meant to break into the Hokage's personal library and see if we can find the scrolls of his prized jutsu. Why should we be wasting our time on the Gaki? Cat asked. They had already wasted too much time and he didn't want to waste it more by simply killing a brat. He's just a kid, it won't take us long to put him down and then we can finish our mission, Deer said, showing his arrogant smirk to others. Cat looked at Tiger who nodded his head, giving his approval to this side mission. But sighed when moving in, I have a bad feeling about this. Ooh, Naruto had already known that 4 presences in the shadows were watching him. They all were good at suppressing their chakra and erasing their presence, but they couldn't fool Naruto's senses. He could sense emotions and chakra signatures from 100 miles away. He knew that they would make a move soon, so he waited for it. He didn't have to wait much longer for it as he found himself surrounded by 4 enemy ninja. Well, look what we've got here, guys. Son of the Yellow Flash, and all alone in his home, this must be our lucky day, Bear taunted. "It," Naruto said, his voice calm. "Ooh, look at him. Standing against 4 enemy ninja without an ounce of fear. Looks like we got ourselves a brave one," Deer said, as he looked at his fellow ninja before turning back to Naruto. He sneered at him from behind his mask, and continued, "After killing you, we'll become heroes in our village." "Heroes for killing a mere boy?" Naruto said, his voice quite emotionless. "To me, it's nothing but act of cowardice." He knew certain buttons to push to make it easier. "You're dead, boy," Deer shouted. He wasn't going to let some kid talk to him like that. Both Deer and Bear unsheathed their weapons. They charged at Naruto, only for their attacks to phase right through him without leaving a scratch on him. "What the hell?" both Deer and Bear exclaimed loudly. "He slipped right through their attack. It's like he wasn't even there even though we could see him," Tiger said. He was sure that it wasn't a genjutsu because he could have sensed it the moment it was casted. "But how?" Cat asked. He had never seen anything quite like it before. "I don't know what happened, but let's find out," Tiger said. He started to make hand seals for a jutsu. Cat followed him and soon they were making same hand seals. Once they finished making the hand seals, at the same time they shouted, "Doden! Doryuden, Earth Release! Earth Dragon Projectile!" They released 2 huge Chinese dragons made from the earth toward Naruto. Nevertheless, before the dragons could touch the redhead, they vanished, as if they weren't even there, shocking the Iwa ninja. But what they didn't know was that Naruto had absorbed both dragons. "I was right," Naruto said darkly. He opened his eyes to show his evolved dojutsu. In his left eye, he had 9 tomo. While in his right eye, there was the normal red with the black tomo Sharingan. Chakra does not belong to humans. His chakra spiked before a massive amount of dark chakra was released from his body. Ooh. Minato and Kushina were watching all children who were enjoying themselves and playing the games that were part of the festival. They also noticed Natsumi's sour mood as she walked with them. They didn't blame her for that. "Minato, Kushina," a familiar voice called. They quickly turned around to see a familiar face of Hiruzen Sarutobi. "Hiruzen-sama," Minato said. "Hey, old man," Kushina greeted, causing Minato to sweat drop at her disrespectful behavior. Hiruzen smiled and walked toward them. After all these years, Kushina's behavior didn't bother him anymore. "How are you two?" "We are all right. Thank you for asking," Minato answered, smiling. "And Naruto?" Hiruzen had tried to find a redhead-haired boy, but he had failed to see particular shade of red hair. "Where is he?" Minato noticed that hearing their son's name had made Kushina's mood drop again. He placed his hands on her shoulders to support her. "He's home. He's not interested in the festival," he said. "Why?" Hiruzen asked. What kid wouldn't like festivals? Before Minato could answer, they heard Ino's voice as she yelled out in fear, "Natsumi!" They quickly turned around and saw Natsumi on the ground holding her stomach in pain. They quickly rushed toward her. Kushina held her daughter. "Natsumi," she said worried. "Ka-chan. Tu-san? J-Gigi," Natsumi weakly said. Her eyes blinking rapidly before she fainted. Only to snap her eyes wide open a second later, but they weren't her normal blue sky eyes. Her eyes were now red-slitted the same as the Kyuubi. Before Minato could say anything the moment she opened her eyes, Natsumi screamed out in the Kyuubi's voice, "Otsutsuki!" She screamed out, making the others confused as to why it would scream out that name. "What happened to her?" Hiruzen asked, worried as he could feel she was releasing too much Fox's chakra. Suddenly, Kakashi appeared there in a puff of smoke. "Sensei, we've detected some unknown chakra signatures," he told his leader. "Where?" Minato asked, his azure eyes hardened like steel, showing the reason he had become a leader. "Near your home," Kakashi said as Minato became confused. "What? How was that possible?" "Naruto!" Kushina shouted, as she realized Naruto was alone in their home. "Kakashi, you take care of Natsumi," Minato ordered before turning towards the former Hokage and his wife. "Let's go." He used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu and disappeared with Kushina and Hiruzen. Ooh. As soon as Minato, Hiruzen, and Kushina appeared outside the Uzumaki house with a yellow flash, they felt a large amount of dark chakra emanating from the inside. Naruto is in there. We need to get there quick. Kushina shouted, fearing for safety of her son. Without wasting any time, they ran inside and went toward where they could sense the dark chakra waves. This chakra, it feels even more sinister than the Nine Tails. We need to be careful, Minato warned other. When they reached the source of the chakra, they saw 4 dead bodies of Iwa shinobi. 2 of them were impaled in multiple areas with sharp tree roots, which were deep inside their body. Remaining 2 were killed by dark chains that crisscrossed and had them hanging onto trees. Iwa shinobi? What were they doing here? Hiruzen asked, recognizing the symbol on the masks. Then the 2 fully grown trees got his attention. As far as he knew, only one bloodline was capable of growing full-grown trees in one day or in a few minutes. These days, only one person could use that bloodline, but that person was out of the village for an important mission at that time. Who did this? He all followed the chains back to their source and saw Naruto as he stood there in the middle of the training grounds. The chains were coming out of his back while his left arm had wrapped into tree roots that were going inside the ground. Mokuton, wood release. He can use Mokuton, wood release. Hiruzen said, wide-eyed at seeing Naruto's left arm that had tree roots wrapped around it. Those are chakra chains. I didn't know Naruto inherited my special chakra, did you? Kushina asked her husband. Minato shook his head, all while he was staring at Naruto's emotionless violet eyes. Ooh, Minato could never forget his son's eyes. Those eyes had held no emotion in them. It was the main reason he had refused to let Naruto take an early graduation test. This incident had also led to question about Naruto's wood release bloodline. Thankfully, Hiruzen had a theory. The Uzumaki clan was distant blood relative of the Senju clan. Maybe, because of this, Naruto could use the wood release like the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. The complete incident was kept hidden from public. Naruto's wood release was declared a S-rank secret. Only selective few people knew about it. For public knowledge, Naruto's chakra chains killed Stone Ninja. It had contributed to raise Naruto's popularity among the Leaf's people. After that incident, Kushina tried to teach Naruto chakra chain as a way to connect with him, but he adamantly refused to learn anything from her, saying that he didn't need to learn from someone who had weaker chains than him. Minato, Hiruzen called out patiently. Minato shook his head before he turned back to his visitors and asked, sorry, did you say something? Hiruzen's sweat dropped and said, you are truly Kakashi's sensei. Kaharu made a fake cough to catch their attention toward her before saying, well anyway, we've thought about. Ooh, it was the day of the graduation exam. Natsumi was sitting inside the classroom with her childhood friends. She had grown into a carbon copy of her father with build, skin, and long bright blonde hair with strands that framed both sides of her face like her father. She wore similar ninja gear Kushina had wore when she was a genin. A short-sleeved, tan kimono-like blouse with a dark embroidered border, held closed with a black obi, a dark skirt, and stockings that stopped at her thighs and brown sandals. To Natsumi's right side was her friend, Hinata Hyuga, the heiress of the Hyuga clan. She had dark blue hair, fair skin, and customary white eyes of her clan that had a tinge of lavender. She wore a cream-colored hooded jacket with a fire symbol on the upper right and left sleeves and fur around the cuffs and hem, with navy blue pants. Like the rest of her clan, she possessed the renowned Byakugan. She was the shy girl in their little group. Natsumi's left side was her friend, Ino Yamanaka from the Yamanaka clan. She was a fair-skinned girl of average height with blue eyes. Her most noticeable trait in her appearance was her long, blonde hair, which was in a high ponytail with bangs covering the right side of her face. She wore a pair of small silver hoop earrings and purple, fairly revealing clothing. Then, there was the rest of the students in the class. There was Kiba Inuzuka from the Inuzuka clan with his nindog, Akamaru. Like the rest of his clan, Kiba had messy brown hair, sharp black eyes with vertical slit-like pupils, pronounced canine teeth, and nails that can change into claws. He also had the distinct red fang markings of the Inuzuka clan on his cheeks. His attire consisted of dark grayish pants reaching to his calves and a gray, hooded fur-lined coat over an apparent plate of armor and fishnet undershirt. His nin-dog Akamaru was a tiny puppy who had white fur. Next to him was a boy with his head down, sleeping. He was Shikamaru Nara, heir of the Nara clan. He had quite long jet black hair tied in a spiky ponytail, narrow brown eyes. His attire was rather plain, consisting of a green-lined mesh t-shirt under a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges, adorned on both the sleeves and the back with a circle with a line through it, brown pants, and blue sandals. Next to Shikamaru was a chubby boy who was eating a bag of chips. He was Shikamaru's best friend, Shoji Akamichi from the Akamichi clan. He had spiky, brown hair, swirl marks on his cheeks, like the rest of his clan. He was quite husky, which was a necessity in his clan to perform their techniques. He wore black shorts, a long white scarf, a short-sleeved, green haori, over a white shirt with his clan's obligatory kanji for food on it, small, hoop earrings, and his legs and forearms were wrapped in bandages. Right behind them was a fair-skinned boy with dark, bushy, brown hair. His name was Shino Aburame. He wore dark sunglasses and a sea-green jacket with a high, upturned collar. He was a fellow of the Hidden Leaf's Aburame clan, whose members used insects as weapons. Away from all students, sitting next to a window was a dark-haired boy, Sasuke Uchiha, one of the last, loyal, Uchiha of the Leaf. He was a fair-skinned boy who had onyx eyes and black chin-length hair. His hair was spiky in the back with bangs. His clothing consisted of the traditional Uchiha clothing, a blue, short-sleeved shirt with a high collar and the Uchiha crest on the back and white arm warmers. There was also one girl from civilian family. Her name was Sakura Haruno. She had bright pink hair, large green eyes, fair skin, and a large forehead. She wore a sleeveless red kippou dress with white circular designs, with a zipper, tight dark green shorts. They were most promising and talented students who had good chances to become shinobi of the Leaf. The whole class was comprised of about 30 students. Most of them were civilian children, and learning ninja arts was just fun or something their parents had forced them to do. The class was bustling with noises, as all students were really excited. After all, it was graduation day. When two academy instructors walked swiftly into the noisy classroom, the entire class fell silent. They got in front of the class with their backs facing the blackboard. First academy instructor was Iruka Amino. He was a man of average height and build. He had brown hair that he kept in a ponytail, dark eyes, and a scar that ran across the bridge of his nose. Next to him was Mizuki Toji. He had shoulder-length, white hair that had a slight hint of blue to it and green eyes. Both instructors were dressed in a standard The Hidden Leaf shinobi outfit complete with forehead protector, sandals, and flak jacket. "Good morning," Iruka said, "as all of you know, today is your graduation exam." He started his boring speech about ninja life. Ino leaned to the side and whispered, "Psst. Natsumi." Natsumi turned to her and in a low tone, she replied, "Yes? Where is Naruto-kun?" "I don't." Without warning, the classroom's door flung open, catching everyone's attention on it. They saw a boy walk into the room. The boy was a fairly tall for his age, wearing red-black customized armor over black hooded high-collared shirt and black pants with black shinobi sandals and black fingerless gloves. He started to move toward his seat next to Sasuke. "Naruto!" Iruka shouted. "You can't wear the hood inside the classroom." Naruto hated being told what he was and wasn't allowed to do, but today he will make an exception. As he removed his hood, most of the girls in the class blushed. He had violet eyes, spiky red hair with black streaks, and slightly pale skin. He was handsome. Ignoring everyone, he took his seat and crossed his arms with a bored expression on his face, but not without giving Sasuke a nod, whom also nodded. "Naruto ni-chan," Natsumi looked at her brother. Her face dropped, as her eyes became sad. Even with all the training she had done with her parents, she couldn't match up against her brother. He was a prodigy among prodigies, smart and strong. He was a true genius. She tried everything to improve her relationship with him, but nothing worked against her brother's cold behavior. "As you all know, today is graduation exam. It will take place in the next room. Come in there when you hear your name being called," Iruka said as he completed his speech. Iruka started the test to find the potential genin. One by one, he called the names. Naruto noticed that many students had passed the test. But most of them were going to fail in the next test, he thought. He had known about a test that is used to weed out non-capable genin. His thoughts were cut off when he heard Iruka called his name. Iruka shouted, "Naruto Uz." He stopped in the middle of pronouncing the name, when he felt Naruto's cold stare. Naruto. That stare always made him fear the kid. Naruto stood up and started to walk toward the exam room. "Good luck, Naruto-kun. Good luck. Naruto-kun, you are the best." His many fangirls gave him their best wishes. "Good luck, Naruto-ni-chan," Natsumi said to her brother, who just ignored her as usual. "Why does he always ignore you?" Ino asked. It was one question she always had in her mind. Natsumi sighed as her face became sad. "I don't want to talk about it." She looked at Naruto again and saw him go into the exam room. A few minutes later, he came out of the exam room wearing his new leaf forehead protector around his left arm. Ignoring all congratulations he was getting from his fangirls, he sat back in his seat. "Natsumi Uzumaki," Iruka shouted. "It's your turn, Natsumi." "Good luck," Ino said, smiling. Hinata said, "Gee, good luck, Natsumi." "Thanks," Natsumi said as she walked towards the exam room and stopped in front of the door. Determined to make her parents proud, she took a deep breath and cleared her mind. She opened the door and went in. Naruto stood on the top of Hashirama Senju's head that carved into the stone, looking down on the hidden leaf village with his unique eyes. The hooded cloak he was wearing over his ninja gear was blowing in the wind. The hidden village of leaves is a beautiful village. Having very bright and warm weather, it's a great place to live to anyone. It's also one of the most powerful villages in existence, responsible for producing many of the greatest ninja in history like Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and that bastard child, Minato Namikaze, he said. He crossed his arms as he looked up at the moon shining brightly in the night sky. But this village also has dark histories. It's also responsible for creating many deadliest missing ninja, don't you think? Yes. Madara Uchiha, Orochimaru, and Obito were the Leaf's ninja before they become criminals. A voice answered his question. Naruto turned towards the strange mutated creature. He had a human-like shape and facial features, short green hair, a lone yellow eye, as well as unusually rounded teeth. "You're right, White Zetsu, but the last one is the victim of the Leaf's Hokage." "Aha, yes, Minato. So anyway," Naruto turned around and looked back at the Leaf Village. "Do you have any interesting news for me and Sasuke?" "Yes," Zetsu said in slightly cheerful tone. "It's about Academy instructor, Mizuki." Ooh. In the deep forest, Iruka and Mizuki were battling against each other, but as things stood, it seemed Mizuki would be the one to prevail. "Give the scroll back, Mizuki," Iruka shouted. Mizuki only laughed and said, "With this scroll, I will become invincible." He slashed Iruka's shoulder with a poisoned kunai. The poison was soon to start its effect on Iruka's body. He suddenly began feeling tired and dizzy, and fell to the ground. With his blurry eyes, he looked up and saw Mizuki bring a kunai down to him to finish him. "So this is it, this is how I'll die." He closed his eyes and waited for the inevitable. He had a good life, and he was not afraid of dying. The sound of kunai clanged snapped him out of his own thoughts. He saw a hooded figure block the kunai and throw the traitor away for him. Anbu, thank God, but he was proven wrong. "Naruto," Mizuki said. Iruka looked up at the hooded figure. Even with blurry eyes, he could see there was a familiar red hair sticking out from the hood. "Naruto?" he asked tiredly. "You? How dare you try to ruin my plan?" Mizuki shouted. "Tch," Naruto snorted, putting his hands on pockets and putting the kunai away. Gritting his teeth, Mizuki dashed toward him with kunai in his hand. "Naruto!" Iruka shouted, worried for his student's safety. Naruto stood there doing nothing, only eyeing the traitor lazily. He yawned once more, hands still in his pockets. In the last moment, just as the kunai was about to connect to his chest, he simply sidestepped as a leg came out of nowhere and kneed up the surprised Mizuki and slammed him right on his stomach, giving him a heavy blow. Before the man could recover, another leg came up and instantly went down as it hit Mizuki's back, making the man kiss the ground and let out a muffled yell of pain. "Is this all you can do?" another voice said, making Mizuki and Iruka look towards Naruto and realize that Sasuke was the one who did the kicking. "Weak," Sasuke said as he gave Mizuki a hard kick, sending him skidding across the ground and slamming to a tree. Mizuki glared at the raven-haired boy and the red-haired boy angrily as he tried to stand up again using a tree as support. "I will show you my true power," he cried as he took a vial out from one of his vest pockets and brought it to his lips. He chugged it down in one gulp, shivering from the taste. Naruto and Sasuke watched with a raised eyebrow. Mizuki's skin began to seemingly bubble and stretch as his nails lengthened to claws and his teeth turned to fangs. His ears lengthened and he grew orange fur. Behold! Mizuki got up when the transformation finished, looking like a bipedal tiger, the ultimate gift from Orochimaru-sama. "So what are you, a werekitten?" Naruto asked Mizuki mockingly as Sasuke smirked. "Brat, you will tremble in fear at my strength." Mizuki vanished from sight and reappeared in front of Naruto. As he was about to punch Naruto, his whole body stopped. "What?" he asked, slightly scared. Soon enough smoke appeared from the ground and moved towards Mizuki until it covered his body. Mizuki tried to slash his claw into smoke, but he couldn't move his body. It slowly started to burn his skin where it touched. Mizuki screamed in pain and fell to his knees. Sasuke went behind Mizuki and placed his hand on Traitor's back, right above the place where his heart should be. "Thanks for the information, Mizuki," Sasuke said as Mizuki became wide-eyed while still screaming in pain. Sasuke looked at Naruto and nodded. Naruto looked at Mizuki and smiled evilly and lustfully. "I will enjoy breaking Tsubaki-chan and making her into nothing but my cum dumpster, Mizuki," he said as Mizuki looked at him with rage, fear, and hate. Soon 3 black chains came out from Naruto's back and were sent to Mizuki, bursting through Mizuki's chest, killing him instantly. Naruto pulled the chakra chains back into his back, letting his former sensei's body fell to the ground. He turned towards Sasuke and pointed to Iruka, seeing as he was lying on the ground motionless. Sasuke, nodding, went towards Iruka and checked the pulse on his wrist. "He's alive, but unconscious. We need to heal him. Can't have him die on me now, it'll cause too much explanations for later." He sighed and made a single shadow clone who went to copy the forbidden scroll of sealing. The real one's hand started to glow green as he used a diagnostic jutsu to check him over. "Poison," he said as he began to remove the poison from his former teacher's body using the medical knowledge he had acquired in his training from Naruto. "Ooh!" 2 Anbu jumped down from the trees and landed on the ground near unconscious Iruka. The first one was a woman by the shape of her body. She wore a cat mask with 3 red stripes, 1 vertical stripe on the forehead and 2 horizontal stripes, 1 on each cheek. Her partner had an eagle's mask on his face that covered in green and red markings. Both of them dressed in standard Anbu uniform, consisting of black and gray armor, metal arm guards, and swords strapped on their back. "What happened here?" Eagle asked mostly himself. An academy teacher, Mizuki Toji, was a traitor, a voice said from behind them. Unsheathing their sword, both Anbu quickly turned around to deal with danger. They sheathed them when they saw their Hokage's son and Uchiha Sasuke there. They didn't want to admit it, but the red and black-haired boys' sudden appearance behind them had caught them off guard. Naruto was smirking inside. Even though their masks hid it well, he could tell both Anbu were shocked by his sudden appearance. Kat realized that he had used the past tense to mention Mizuki. "Was?" she asked. Naruto pointed his thumb at Mizuki's body, which had returned to normal after his death. "Me and Sasuke killed him," he said, pointing to both him and Sasuke. "He was working for Orochimaru, stole the forbidden scroll of sealing and tried to kill a fellow leaf ninja. Also in our fight, he drank something to turn himself into some kind of bipedal tiger monster." Sasuke handed him the vial as he threw the vial at them. Orochimaru had given it to him. "Very well," Kat said while pocketing the vial for further investigation. "Good job. Also take Iruka to the hospital. He's injured," while Sasuke already removed the poison from his body and healed most of the wounds as much as he could do with his medical jutsu's knowledge. As they began to walk, Naruto's body slowly started to turn into a pitch-black smoke and Sasuke into a flock of red and black crows. "Goodbye," Naruto said as Sasuke nodded towards them. With Naruto fully transformed into black smoke as Sasuke had dissolved into crows, both of them vanishing from sight. "Man, those boys remind me of Izan and Kakashi," Eagle said. "He's emotionless and genius just like both of them." Kat nodded. I can only hope that they both don't turn traitors. They won't be easy to kill if they become stronger than they are now. As a high-ranking Enbo officer, she knew most things that were happening within the village. She knew about the strained relationship between Hokage's family and Hokage's son, along with the relationship between Sasuke, his mother and siblings. The boys hated their own families. She couldn't blame them for that. She would have done the same thing, if her family had been responsible for sending her 6 months in the coma and for basically ignoring or calling her weak. She looked down at Iruka and Mizuki. "Let's go," she said. She picked up Iruka and the forbidden scroll of sealing while her partner, Eagle, picked up Mizuki's dead body and they disappeared using the body flicker jutsu. Naruto was walking toward the classroom with his hood covering his face. It was the day when he and the rest of the recently graduated students would be assigned into genin teams. He calmly strolled into class and immediately walked toward his seat. Once there he nodded to Sasuke before sitting down in his seat. He crossed his arms over his chest and closed his eyes, deciding to get some more rest. A few minutes later, he heard Iruka's voice due to him screaming to the class. "All right class, sit down." No one paid Iruka any mind, and continued their talking and playing, making said teacher gain a tick mark. "I said sit down." He roared using his big head jutsu, which was not technically a jutsu, but his job was done as all of them immediately took their seats. He cleared his throat and looked to his class. There wasn't any weakness in his voice, nor was he showing any signs of yesterday's injuries. "Today, Iruka-sensei," Sakura interpreted, holding her hand up. "Yes, Sakura?" Iruka answered, a bit peeved at being interrupted. She stood up from her seat and asked, "Where is Mizuki-sensei?" "Well," he started. He and the Hokage had come up with an excuse to cover up the Mizuki incident. "He is on a long-term top-secret mission and I can't tell you about it, because if I tell you, then I'll have to kill you." It was truly a lame excuse, but in the end it scared Sakura at that as she nodded her head fearfully without asking any more question and took a seat. "Now class." He started one of his boring speeches about ninja life. Ignoring everything that Iruka was saying, Natsumi looked at her twin brother out of the corner of her eyes, as did Satsuki. She knew everything that Iruka had told Sakura was a lie since she had accidentally heard her parents in the hallway talking about the Mizuki incident. The silver-haired academy teacher wasn't on some kind of long-term top-secret mission, he was dead. Their brothers killed him for his treason. Quickly dismissing their thoughts, they turned back to Iruka, who was about announced teams. "I hope you to do your duties with the utmost diligence and not to dishonor your village. From now on, you'll be placed in teams under the tutelage of your Junin sensei." Team 1. Iruka began as Sasuke and Naruto's fans waited to see who among them would end up on their squad. Team 7 is Haruno Sakura, Sasuke Uchiha. Iruka winced as he heard the little banshee screaming in victory. Natsumi Uzumaki, Satsuki Uchiha, and Naruto under Junin Kakashi Hatake and Kushina Uzumaki. He paled as he was struck by a feeling of utter dread. He looked up, only to see Naruto's cold stare. He swallowed a lump in his throat and continued shakily to declare the other teams. Naruto really didn't care, though he was slightly unhappy and happy at the same time. Unhappy because his girl Ino, kept it a secret from everyone, was not gonna be with him, meaning no pleasure for a bit, blowjobs since she was still 12 years old. And happy because Kushina was there, her time was decreasing and his desire was increasing. Sasuke was also clearly unhappy for being paired with Sakura along with Satsuki. He had no problem with Natsumi, but that useless fangirl was the one he disliked, and his twin he just didn't care nor liked her. Sakura was cheering inside her mind. It was her dream to end up together with her Sasuke-kun. It was common knowledge that genin were put in 4-man cells or squad, consisting of 3 genin and a Junin sensei. However, her team constituted an exception. It was a 7-man cell, 5 genin and 2 Junin sensei, cha. "My love for Sasuke-kun is strong enough to make Hokage-sama bend rules for me," she thought as another Sakura appeared in her mind. She looked exactly like Sakura, except she was in inverted colors. A gray body color with white lines. She had white eyes and kanji of inner Sakura on her large forehead, pumping her fist in the air. She shouted, "When love is eternal, even God bends its rules." Natsumi was grinning, as she was happy. She was placed on the same team as her brother, one of her best friends, and her mother, meaning they were going to be together most of the time and she might be able to reconnect with her brother. Q minor blush. Satsuki didn't know how to feel at the moment. She was a bit happy she was going to be with her only brother and maybe try and reconnect with him just like Natsumi was trying to do with her brother, but her fear over him replaced that. But once again her happiness came back 5x the amount she had before as her fear left when she remembered that Naruto was on her team. Q blush. While he was the friend of her brother and the brother of her friend, she gained a huge crush when he had visited her and her family when they were in the hospital after the massacre. And while he was originally there to see Sasuke, he looked at her when he saw that she was staring at him and just said the one thing that made her heart soar, "Glad you're okay," he said with a small smile. Ever since then, she would try to get close to her brother so that maybe he could introduce him to her. It appeared that the only ones truly satisfied about the team were the girls. Suddenly, Naruto and Sasuke stood up from their seats and started to walk towards the exit, shocking many students. "Where are you both going?" Iruka asked. Both boys were a real mystery, not just to him but everyone. Nobody could guess what was going through their minds. "It's obvious, we're leaving," Naruto said, stopping in his tracks as Sasuke kept going. "What about your team meeting?" Iruka asked, fearing they were quitting the system, only to sigh in relief when he heard their answer. "One of our senseis is Kakashi, so you're already aware of his reputation. We don't want to waste our time waiting for a worthless ninja who can't even show up on time," Sasuke said as he was only a few steps toward the door. "Anyways, if they finally show up and want to see us, then tell them they can find us outside, in the academy training ground," Naruto said before they walked out of the classroom and closed the door behind them. -1 hour later. Within an hour, all the teams were picked up by their sensei with the exception of Team 7. They were sitting in the classroom and waiting for their own sensei to pick them up. While Sakura was thinking about Sasuke, Satsuki was thinking about Naruto, and Natsumi was thinking about her current team. "Okay, so I'm with Mom, Satsuki-chan, Naruto-ni-chan, and Kakashi Oni-san. I'll have to thank Dad, but..." She looked at Sakura. "But why did he put the class's biggest fangirl on my team?" "Sure, I can put up being with the Sasuke since he is Oni-chan's friend and Satsuki is my friend, but Sakura. I don't like her." "Where are they?" Sakura cried, having gotten sick of waiting. She was just trying to vent some of her frustration from waiting as well as having Sasuke leave her with his sister and Natsumi. "Sakura, please keep your voice down," Natsumi said, rubbing her ears. Being Jinchuriki of the 9 tails, she had heightened senses which were sometimes pain in the ass to deal with, especially since she was next to Sakura. "Kakashi was my father's student. He's always late by at least 2 hours and it is common belief that Kakashi Hitaki will be late for his own funeral." Sakura looked at her as if she was crazy, and seeing this, a tick mark appeared on her face. "It's true. But don't worry about him, my mom will handle him," she said with a sweet smile, already knowing what her mother was going to do Kakashi. As she finished the sentence, twin puffs of smoke erupted in the room, drawing their attention to it. When they cleared, both Junin appeared in front of them. The first one was Kushina Uzumaki, wearing the standard uniform, which consisted of a simple black suit with a standard flak jacket, black pant, strapped-up sandals and leaf forehead protector on her head. Her long red hair was tied into a ponytail with bangs the both sides of her face. Their attention then went toward the man standing next to her. This man was Kakashi Hitaki. His hair was not white, but had more of a silvery hue to it. He wore regular attire of anyone in the regular forces of the Leaf. On his hands were short, metal-plated gloves. He wore his forehead protector on a simple navy blue band, tilted to the left to cover his left eye, and half of his face was covered by a navy blue mask. "Yo," he greeted them with waving his hand. "Sorry, we were late. We were lost on the road of life." Everyone's sweat dropped at his lame excuse. It was obvious that he was lying. "Kakashi," Kushina shouted as she whacked him on the back of his head. "You're the reason we're late." "Sorry, senpai," Kakashi said, rubbing his head. "Man, she still hits hard." Kushina turned back to her students. "Anyway, Team 7EH. Where is Naruto-kun and Sasuke?" she asked, as she noticed the lack of their 2 male students. "Naruto-ni-chan and Sasuke are outside," Natsumi answered her mother's question. Kushina nodded and said, "Let's go get them." She and Kakashi put their hands on their future students' shoulders and disappeared in puffs of smoke. With Naruto and Sasuke, They all appeared in the Ninja Academy training ground, as Sakura felt a little dizzy but it began to fade. Unlike her teammate, Natsumi was perfectly fine since she had already gotten used to her father's Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, which was more powerful and faster than the body flicker technique, and Satsuki was used to it since Izan used it on her. It's just temporary, you'll get over it soon, Kushina said as Sakura already started to feel good. What the hell happened here? Natsumi shouted, catching the others' attention towards her. They quickly followed the line of her gaze and saw the condition of the training ground. It was torn in many places, filled with numerous small holes and cut marks. Fascinating, Kakashi said as he saw Naruto and Sasuke wielding katanas in both hands. Their bodies seemed ready to attack any moment if disturbed. I didn't know he was into kenjutsu, Kushina said in a slightly depressed tone. Kakashi looked at her and couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Being close to the Hokage's family, he knew that the relationship between his sensei's family and Naruto was non-existent. He also knew that putting Kushina and Natsumi on the same team with Naruto was Minato's idea, which in his mind was a bad. He knew that his sensei was only trying to repair Naruto's relationship between them. It was still a bad idea. He looked back at Naruto and couldn't help but think that the boy was the perfect example for a shinobi. He was intelligent, calculating, and secretive, but he was also dark and lonely. The primary qualities were good to him, but when connected to the last two, it could form a very dangerous combination. Best examples of that was Orochimaru. Spying on someone isn't a good thing. A voice caught everyone off guard. They quickly whirled around, looking back in the direction of the voice. They saw Naruto and Sasuke both on the top of a tree branch. What? Sakura shouted in disbelief as she turned back and saw the first Naruto and Sasuke still standing there. A clone, Satsuki answered. No, it's a genjutsu, Kakashi said, and a very good one. Correct, Kakashi, Naruto replied as he and Sasuke jumped down from the tree and landed on the ground without any sound. It's a genjutsu. With that said, the other Naruto and Sasuke in the training ground faded from the view. Natsumi asked, but when did you cast it? A good shinobi never reveals his secrets, Naruto told her as he looked at their faces. Natsumi, Satsuki, and Sakura were looking at him with expressions of awe. Kushina was looking at him with a pride, and Kakashi he saw no reaction on his face. Okay, you four, meet us on the roof in 10 minutes, Kakashi said as he and Kushina used the body flicker technique to disappear in puffs of smokes. Without saying anything to the others, Naruto turned himself into a pitch-black smoke and Sasuke dissolved in crows, leaving Satsuki, Natsumi, and Sakura alone in the training ground. See you guys up there, Natsumi said, as she ran toward the academy. After seeing this, Satsuki frowned, but she quickly decided to go up to the rooftop, where she left the ground with Sakura following behind her. Rooftop. When Sakura arrived on the rooftop, she found Satsuki and Natsumi sitting on a stone bench. They were looking at the scene in front of them with an amused expression on their faces. Kushina stood, holding up an orange book in her hand. In front of her was Kakashi, who was attempting to take the book away from Kushina. And finally, there was Naruto and Sasuke. They were leaning against the wall, with one reading his own book while ignoring everything that was going on around him, and the other just had his eyes closed. Please, Kushina-senpai, Kakashi said, kneeling in front of her. This is the first edition and signed copy of Icha Icha Paradise. Kakashi, Kushina said, releasing a small amount of her killing intent. I'll burn you and your books, if I ever find you reading this type of book in front of my children or students again. Got it? Kakashi gulped and gave a fearful nod. Good. She threw the book toward him. She absolutely hated these perverted books her husband's teacher wrote. Kakashi quickly caught the book and put it in his flak jacket's pocket. He didn't want to make Kushina angry. The last time when he had made her angry, she had tied him up with a chakra-suppressing rope and left him hanging upside down on the tree. Thinking of that time made him shiver in delight. He still had nightmares about it. Sakura's sweat dropped. Is he really a Junin? She thought before she sat down next to Natsumi and Satsuki. Seeing that the drama was over, Naruto snapped his book close and Sasuke opened his eyes to then take seats next to Natsumi, Naruto aka. He sat next to her, and Satsuki, Sasuke. Kakashi and Kushina sat on the steps, which were opposite side of their students. I think we should get to know each other better first. Let's start with telling your name, what you like, what you dislike, and your dreams for the future and your hobbies, Kakashi said, looking at his future students. How about you go first, sensei, so we know what we have to say, Sakura said to Kakashi. Is she stupid? Was the common thought in others' minds. Alright then, I'm Kakashi Hitaki. I have no desire to tell you my likes and dislikes. My dreams for the future. As for my hobbies, I have lots of hobbies. The only thing we learned about him was his name, Sakura thought. Natsumi's sweat dropped. Seriously. Kakashi is too lazy to even tell about himself to others. As usual, Kakashi and his secretive attitude, Kushina knew that Kakashi didn't like people knowing too much about him. Sharingan? Satsuki thought. Naruto continued, he is also the last living student of Minato. His hobby is reading Icha Icha series, which I also read, so I guess we can also agree on that. Kushina glared at Kakashi for this, making him to look away from her, but Naruto's last words made him look at Naruto with gratitude for liking Icha Icha, and it made Kushina's mind crash for a bit. His dream is to fight Minato and match him. His favorite foods are salt-broiled saori and miso soup with eggplant, while his least favorites are anything fried or sweet. He has completed 1,141 official missions in total, 197 D rank, 190 C rank, 414 B rank, 310 A rank, 30 S rank, he finished. There was complete silence. No one said a word. Kushina was smiling inside her mind. Looks like he had done some research on Kakashi, she thought. Okay, Kakashi said. He hadn't expected something like this. There goes my plan, making me look mysterious in front of students, he thought. However, there was something bugging him. Where did you get all this information? He asked. Most of things that Naruto said weren't entirely secret, but neither was it common knowledge. Naruto just looked at him. It's my hobby to gather information on every famous ninja, and you're quite famous in ninja world. Copy Ninja Kakashi. The man who has copied over 1,000 jutsu. All three remaining stared at Kakashi incredulously after hearing that he knew 1,000 jutsu with their jaw hanging open. T-1,000 jutsu? Sakura sputtered out, being the first one to snap out of the shock though. Kakashi ignored her completely. It is truly a good hobby. It will certainly help you in future, he said to Naruto. Hey, Natsumi shouted, catching their attention toward her. She pointed her finger at Kakashi. Why didn't you tell me about this? She asked. She had always thought he was a lazy man, but the thought of him being a genius never even crossed her mind. Well, Kakashi said, you never asked. Hearing this, Natsumi's face faltered. Kushina let out a small laugh, seeing the expression on her daughter's face. Anyway, it's my turn, she said, gaining her all students' attention towards her with the exception of Naruto and Sasuke. My name is Kushina Uzumaki. I love my husband and children, Naruto scoffed when she mentioned children. My likes are ramen, particularly salt ramen, and playing pranks on people. My dislikes are perverts, people who make fun of my hair, coffee, and anything bitter. My hobbies are pulling pranks, chatting with my friends, and cooking. As for my dream is. She glanced at Naruto. I want to see my complete family once again. Only Kakashi, Satsuki, and Natsumi caught the hidden meaning behind Kushina's words, as they knew what she meant. TCH, delusional bitch. Naruto said it loud enough for Kushina and the others to hear, making said person look down and Kakashi glare at Naruto, but Naruto returned at full force, making said silver-head ninja look away at the feeling of death coming to him just by that glare. Kakashi coughed lightly and said, okay, Natsumi, you are next. Natsumi smiled brightly, trying to ease the tensions rising. My name is Natsumi Uzumaki. I like my family, my friends, ramen, and learning new jutsu. My hobbies are eating ramen, playing with my friends, and trying new justice. I dislike traitors, perverts, and anyone who harms my family or friends. My dream is to help my mother to achieve her dream. Hearing it, a small smile appeared on Kushina's face, and I want to become the first female Hokage. She cried out the final part, pumping her fist in the air. A huge sweat drop appeared on the back on Kakashi's head. She's a mini Kushina in the team. He pointed at Sakura, who was sitting next to Natsumi. You're next, Pinky, he said, which caused Sakura to scowl. My name is Sakura Haruno. My likes are. She glanced at Sasuke. My hobbies are playing trivia games and She looked at Sasuke again with a slight blush on her face. My dislikes are Ino Pig along with Amy and her gang. My dreams for the future? Kya. She screamed in excitement of what could happen between her and Sasuke in the future. Sasuke looked at her and teased. Naruto just shook his head and ignored her. In short, her dream, hobby, and everything are linked to Sasuke, another delusional whore. Natsumi also ignored her. Sakura liking Sasuke was generally known in the academy, tch, typical Sakura and her obsession towards Sasuke. Kushina and Kakashi cursed their luck. They looked straight at each other and nodded, knowing what they had to do. Kakashi looked at Sasuke and said, "Okay then, you're next broody over there." Sasuke only ignored the name that Kakashi had given him. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I hate things. I like my girlfriend Akua and Naruto. And I have a dream. He made up the girlfriend part to keep Sakura away since all she was an annoyance. And it worked as Sakura became shocked by the news that he had a girlfriend, then enraged that he had chosen someone else instead of her, and lastly sad that she now had no chance towards winning his heart. At the last part Naruto smirked, just his chance at making her into his puppet to use. And now, last but not least, Mr. Rookie of the Year, Kakashi said, looking directly at Naruto. My name is Naruto. Naruto began. On his lack of using his last name, Kakashi raised his eyebrow and Kushina looked down, so no one could see hurt expression on her face. He doesn't even consider himself as a part of the family, she thought sadly. Naruto continued, I like and hate many things. My hobby is to gather info. My dream, I want to make the Otsutsuki clan come back into this world again. At the last part many looked at him weirdly with the exception of Sasuke who nodded towards him. Otsutsuki clan. Kakashi looked at all his students one by one. Well, I have a mini Kushina, a fangirl, a brooder, and a boy with deep fam. Kakashi couldn't finish his thoughts as Naruto interrupted him. Finish that sentence and I'll have you demoted to Chunin. I mean after all you don't want to make him angry with you, do you? Naruto said as Kakashi looked at him with semi-wide eyes before he nodded. He turned his head toward Kushina. She had a cheerful smile on her face to hide her hurt expression. I think it's time to tell you about the test, Kushina said, surprising everyone, except Naruto and Sasuke. But mom, Natsumi. Natsumi, you're not home, Kushina interrupted. Here, I am your sensei, so call me sensei or Kushina sensei. Did you understand? Why yes, Mo Kushina sensei, Natsumi said, quickly correcting herself, but what kind of test? We already had our test. Kakashi chuckled out loud. What's so funny sensei? Sakura asked with an annoyed expression. Out of all the graduates this year, only a few are going to become real genin, and will stay as teams, while the remaining will be sent back to the academy. In other words, this test is going to be very hard with a dropout rate of 66%, Kushina explained. This means there is 34% chance of success. That's enough for me, Naruto said. Everyone turned toward him and looked him for a minute in silence. What? Naruto asked, annoyed. And nothing, Natsumi said quickly trying not to anger him. Anyways, meet us tomorrow at Training Ground 3 at 9 a.m. sharp, Kushina said. Oh, and a word of advice, don't eat breakfast, you'll just throw up, Kakashi said right after her. And don't be late, Kushina said as she glared at Kakashi. Which applies to you as well, Kakashi. Why yes senpai, he nodded fearfully. Both Kakashi and Kushina said goodbye to their students and disappeared in twin puffs of smoke. Both Naruto and Sasuke stood up from their seats and began to walk away before they suddenly stopped dead in their tracks. Naruto turned his head toward his teammates and said, take my advice, don't take Kakashi's advice seriously. Before anyone could ask him anything, they had already gone away from there. What does that mean? Sakura asked. Satsuki answered her, I don't know, when in reality she knew just didn't want to tell the pinkette. Bye, Natsumi said, as she began to walk away as well with Satsuki following her friend and Sakura walked to her home since she now had nothing to do. Next day, in Training Ground 7 Natsumi, Sakura, and Satsuki were waiting for both their senseis and their two male teammates to show up for their test for the last 15 minutes. At 9 am sharp, in a swirl of leaves, Kushina appeared in front of them. Good. You all are in time. But where are Kakashi, Naruto-kun, and Sasuke? She asked, noticing their absence. Suddenly, there was a puff of smoke next to Kushina and Kakashi appeared there. Checking his clock, he sighed in relief before he turned his attention to the others. "Yo," he said, greeting Team 7 and Kushina. "Kakashi?" Kushina said in surprised tone. She looked at Kakashi and then quickly checked the time. She looked up at Kakashi again and checked for any genjutsu, only to find nothing. "You're on time." "Because I do not wish to die," Kakashi muttered under his breath. "Did you say something, Kakashi?" Kushina asked dangerously, as she narrowed her eyes at him. Nothing, senpai," he said quickly, trying not to anger the older redhead. "Good," Kushina said with a smile. Kakashi sighed in relief. "Anyways, where are Naruto and Sasuke?" he asked when he saw only Natsumi, Sakura, and Satsuki there. "We're here," a voice came behind Kakashi, causing him to move around in surprise. The silver-haired man's eye winded when he saw Naruto and Sasuke behind him. "How the hell did he sneak up on me?" He observed the pale blonde-haired and raven-haired boys. "Alright everyone, here is the test," Kushina said, getting everyone's attention. "Kakashi." Kakashi nodded as he walked over to 3 wooden stump posts and put a clock on one. "Your task is getting a bell from Kakashi before noon," Kushina said as Kakashi pulled out 4 bells from his ninja pouch. "Those that don't get a bell will be tied to one of the wooden posts." She pointed at the middle wooden post, "and we'll eat lunch in front of them. Oh, and we'll be sending that person back to the academy." Sakura glared at Kakashi, so telling us not to eat breakfast was for this she held her grumbling stomach. "Thank goddess I took Naruto ni-chan, Kun's advice," Natsumi and Satsuki smiled. They had eaten breakfast before coming for the test. "Why are there only 4 bells if there are 5 of us?" Sakura asked. "Well, Sakura, this way we can send at least one of you back to the academy," Kakashi said with a smug smile. "So come at me with the intent to kill." Pause. Begin. 3 figures, 3 genin and 1 junin, blurred out of existence while 3 stayed there. Kakashi's sweat dropped. You guys, the test has begun." He sent a curious glance at the teens. "They're good, but they can be better." Satsuki and Natsumi are up in the trees while Sakura is hiding in a bush. Sweat drop. "Even though I'm standing next to them, I can't sense Naruto and Sasuke's presences. They're good, truly prodigies, as academy teachers said." "We know," Naruto replied. The sound of his voice was calm. "But before we even go, I just wanted to say that this is the stupidest way of testing our teamwork when you know what exactly will happen." Both Kakashi and Kushina, she was hiding behind a tree to observe her, and Kakashi's future students, were surprised by this. It was the first time someone had found out the true meaning of the bell test. "He's got your quick analyzing mind," Minato, Kushina thought as a small smile appeared on her lips. "So he figured out the meaning behind the test. Impressive," Kakashi thought without taking his eye from the boys. "So what are you going to do?" "Naruto? Sasuke?" he asked. Sasuke looked at Kakashi before responding. "Nothing." Suddenly, Kakashi felt something in the air, like something was off. "Genjutsu," he muttered as he made a hand seal. "Kai." He watched as both boys in front of him faded, showing that they were nothing more than an illusion, truly prodigies. With Natsumi. Natsumi was up on the tree, looking at Kakashi. "Okay, think Natsumi. There are only 4 bells, and we need them before noon to pass the test. However, against an experienced Junin like Kakashi and Ka-chan, this is pretty much impossible for fresh out of the academy genin like us," she thought. "And why are there only 4 bells?" Her eyes widened as she remembered something. Mini flashback. Minato had said to her, "Natsumi, in our line of work, teamwork is the most important factor for the success of a mission." End mini flashback. "Those bells are used to put us against each other. They want to see if we can work out our differences and work together." Natsumi smiled, as she finally understood. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, just trying to calm her nerves. "Okay, I know Sakura is under the bushes on my right, and Satsuki is on a tree on my left. But where is Naruto ni-chan?" Suddenly, a scream caught her attention. She acted quickly and jumped off the tree. She ran toward bushes in the direction she assumed the voice came from. And upon arriving there, Natsumi saw an unconscious Sakura lying on the ground. She instantly ran towards her, knelt down beside her, and checked her condition. "A genjutsu," she told herself. Placing her front finger on Sakura's forehead, she pumped a small bit of chakra into her and dispelled the genjutsu. After a few seconds, Sakura's eyes quickly fluttered open. Sasuke-kun. She cried out before she was shut down. Haruno, shut up, Natsumi said quickly, covering Sakura's mouth to stop her from shouting anymore and giving their position away to Kakashi or her mother. Whatever you saw earlier, it wasn't real, it was a genjutsu. For God's sake, keep your voice down. After receiving a positive response from Sakura, she removed her hand from her mouth. Okay Haruno, I think I have figured out meaning behind the test and she said before she was interrupted by Sakura. Why should I help you? Sakura asked quietly. But, go away, I could probably pass this test by myself, Sakura said, interrupting her again. She got up and left God knows where. Seems like she still had some arrogance in her. Natsumi got angry. Arg. Stupid fangirl. I'm beginning to see why mom hates them so much, she said to herself. Now, where is Satsuki-chan? Standing up, she searched for Satsuki and found her facing Kakashi. Seems like she was too late. With Satsuki crouched down and threw several kunai at Kakashi, who jumped to the side to dodge them. There's no use in just using normal attacks, Kakashi said lazily. Satsuki smirked as kunai she had thrown cut a rope, activating a trap. Several shuriken flew toward Kakashi's direction. A trap? Kakashi said as he crouched along the ground, making the shuriken to hit a tree was on the opposite side of Kakashi. Once standing back up, Satsuki went behind Kakashi and tried to kick him with her left foot. Kakashi quickly raised his arm, blocked, and grabbed her leg with relative ease. Satsuki threw a punch with her right arm only for it to be caught. She brought her other leg up and brought her foot down for a kick. Kakashi blocked it with his forearm as Satsuki reached the bell. He jumped back as Satsuki touched it. I admit you're good, Kakashi said as Satsuki started weaving hand seals. She ended with a horse and tiger and inhaled deeply only to yell out her technique. Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Kakashi's lone eye widened, a genin shouldn't have enough chakra to do this. Satsuki put her right hand to her mouth and exhaled a large fireball. It went soaring to Kakashi only to hit the spot where he was when it reached the Junin. A half-minute passed and Satsuki stopped her attack. She saw that her attack left nothing but a burnt earth. Looking around, she tried to find Kakashi but couldn't see him anywhere. Where did he go? Behind me? No, above? Where is he? She said to herself, frustrated as she lost Kakashi. Beneath you. Kakashi's voice replied that was muffled for some reason. That was when Satsuki felt someone grab her ankles. Wa. Doden. Shinju Zanchu no Jutsu. Earth release. Double suicide decapitation technique. Kakashi said, pulling Satsuki down as she screamed. He got up from the ground and crouched down looking at Satsuki's head from the ground. Good try. Your talents are exceptional, but not good enough. He stood up and started to walk away, knowing Natsumi was following him. With Kakashi. As he got away from Satsuki, Kakashi stopped. Natsumi jumped out in front of him. I was wondering when you would come out, he said. Sorry, I just had to get you alone, Natsumi said, getting into her taijutsu stance. Well then, come at me with the intent to kill, Kakashi said in a lazy tone. With Satsuki. After getting her ass kicked by Kakashi, a humiliated Satsuki was seen struggling to get out of the ground. Natsumi came out from behind one of the surrounding trees. Satsuki, she said running to her friend. Natsumi? What was she doing here? Satsuki figured she would at least be fighting her own mother. I mean Kushina has known Natsumi far longer than her, so she figured that Kushina will knock her out or go after her first. I need your help, since that idiot Pinkette wouldn't help me and I can't find neither Naruto ni-chan or Sasuke. Natsumi said as she got Satsuki out of the ground and started to inform her friend of her plan into her ear, knowing that her mother could hear her plan. And just as she said, thought behind a tree, Kushina saw everything. Looks like Natsumi has also found out a true meaning behind the test. With Natsumi. Good, Satsuki knows of the plan, Natsumi said when her clone's memories suddenly surged into her mind. She ran toward Kakashi and tried to kick him only to miss. He's fast. She spun around and threw a punch toward Kakashi only for Kakashi to block it. For a few minutes, Kakashi was blocking and dodging Natsumi's strikes. She saw a small opening, but just before she could take advantage of it, Kakashi blocked the strike by catching Natsumi's elbow with his left hand. And in an impressive feat of flexibility and agility, Natsumi pushed herself away from Kakashi. "Let's do this," she said, making a single hand seal, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique. 4 clones of the girl appeared in a cloud of smoke and surrounded Kakashi. As they all charged at him, Kakashi dodged their attacks without any difficulty. Shadow clones. Wasn't expecting that from a genin, but then again she is Kushina's daughter. He went and started dispelling all her clones, trying to find the real Natsumi. After he had finished dispelling the remaining clones, he found the real Natsumi. "Are you done yet?" he asked, bored and mockingly at the same time. Suddenly, his danger sense went off. He turned around just in time to see a dozen shuriken flying toward him. Shit. He quickly dodged all lethal weapons. He looked up to meet his attacker right on top of him. "Naruto." "Hello Kakashi," Naruto said, standing on a tree branch. He jumped off the tree and landed on the ground swiftly with no sound. Immediately after that, a wave of black chakra chains erupted from the ground, causing Kakashi to curse as he leapt back and began dodging all chains. So rumors are true. Naruto has inherited Kushina's special chakra chains, he thought while trying to dodge the black chains. Natsumi watched the scene before her with pure awe. She'd never seen anything like that. She knew her mother could use chakra chains, but she never saw her using it, and here was her brother using them. Wow. That's so cool. I wish I could do that. This is taking us nowhere, Naruto said, retreating all chains back into his body. I guess it's time to take it up a notch then. He smirked as Sasuke appeared from behind Kakashi and kicked him hard, making said Junin hit a tree hard. As Kakashi spit out blood and stood up shakily, he looked at the male Uchiha. The force behind that kick was very powerful. He had no doubt that Sasuke had made it so that one more hit or kick could break his ribs or bones the very least. Naruto looked at Sasuke and nodded. He said with intent to kill but show him 15% of what you could do. Sasuke nodded. I'll go take care of somethings. With that he ran towards Natsumi, which shocked that redhead, and was about to say something when he covered her mouth and shunshed them away. Kushina looked at the spot where Natsumi and Naruto were before she left to go find them. Naruto and Natsumi. When they appeared, they were no longer at the training grounds but rather on top of the Hokage monument. Natsumi looked around, and before she could question Naruto, he beat her to it. "You and Satsuki want to pass, right?" he asked, making her nod. "Good. Right now Sasuke is dancing with Kakashi while Kushina is searching for us. When we return you go find Satsuki where you told her to be, and when Sasuke has finished with Kakashi you both grab the 4 bells and go stand by the posts, got it?" Naruto said as she looked at him, trying to figure out what he meant by Sasuke finishing Kakashi, only for her thoughts to be interrupted by Naruto's voice. "Got it?" he asked, this time closer to her face. She blushed bright red and nodded quickly. She really needed to sort out these feelings for her brother. "Good." He grabbed her hand, making her blush even harder, and shunshed away. Sasuke and Kakashi. Kakashi looked at the teen and quickly pulled down his mask to show his Sharingan on his left eye. This kid was not someone to be taken lightly. Sasuke looked at Kakashi and smirked before he vanished and appeared behind Kakashi like last time. He threw a punch to the copycat but was blocked by Kakashi, in which said Junin instantly regretted blocking since he heard his forearms crack and pain quickly rushed in. Without weaving any hand seals he called out, "Mosho Keiseiken," fierce flame fist. Fire instantly started forming in Sasuke's palms before it covered his hands fully. Kakashi, looking at Sasuke's hand, instantly gained feared. His Sharingan didn't see no hand seals, meaning he couldn't copy the technique. What was going on? "Seems like you really don't know how to use the Sharingan, Kakashi. Your mistake in not learning," Sasuke said as he hit Kakashi in the chest, making the Junin spit out a lot more blood. But Sasuke didn't stop there as he dismissed the fire and grabbed Kakashi's right hand. He ignored the cracking he heard and Kakashi's cries to stop, telling him he had made his point, and simply twisted it, making it completely turn 180. Kakashi passed out due to his arm being twisted and dislocated, his ribs being broken, and losing a lot of blood. Sasuke looked at Kakashi and teached. He was supposed to show 15% when this idiot made him only use 0.5%. He started to walk away as both Natsumi and Satsuki appeared and quickly left with Kakashi with them. Naruto. Kushina looked right and left. She even used her sensory skills to try and see where they were, but she couldn't find them anywhere. After Naruto had taken Natsumi to God knows where, she has been trying to find them to make sure Naruto didn't do anything bad to Natsumi. After all, she was the reason he ended up being neglected and the one who ended up in the hospital, so why not take revenge? Where are they? Kushina asked herself as she stopped in the middle of a clearing. Suddenly her senses went off and she jumped back as a dozen kunai were sent towards her. She looked at where they came from and found Naruto leaning on a tree with his arms crossed and his eyes closed. Naruto? Where was Natsumi if Naruto was all here alone? Where's Natsumi? She asked. He opened his eyes and looked at her without any emotion, making the older redhead flinch. She's safe, he responded after a few seconds. Kushina relaxed a bit but didn't let her guard down. She saw what Sasuke did to Kakashi, so who knows what Naruto could do. There was only silence between the two redheads before Naruto broke it. Tell me, Kushina, what is it that you are willing to do to gain me back again in your life again? He asked. He knew that her mind was still in wanting her child back, so he pretty much knew the answer. Kushina's guard went down completely as she lowered her head. She knew she messed up a lot in ignoring her son, but she was willing to do whatever just to get him back into her life again, to have her family complete again. She looked up and looked at him straight in the eyes. Anything, she said in a low voice. He smirked as soon as she said that word. Ho ho, she will soon regret saying that. I see, well then, he looked at her. I will not say when and nor will I say how, but you will get your wish, he said with a small sinister smile that just looked like a normal small smile. Kushina, seeing and hearing that, gained a small smile. She could have her son back. Wait, was that why he took Natsumi away? To speak to Natsumi like he did with her? Let's go. Sasuke already finished dancing with Kakashi and the girls already have the bell, so the test is over, Naruto said as she nodded, not caring about anything else. She had finally gotten the chance and she wasn't going to do anything to lose that. Disappearing in pitch black smoke and in a swirl of leaves, both disappeared from the clearing and went back to the posts. With the rest, Natsumi, Satsuki, Sasuke, Sakura, and the still passed out Kakashi were all waiting for Naruto and Kushina to show up. Although Satsuki and Natsumi were looking at Sasuke with a bit of fear because of the damage he had done to Kakashi, it was simply brutal. On the bright side, they got the bells. Appearing a pitch black smoke and a swirl of leaves, the last two of their team appeared. With one bored as always and another slightly more happier than usual. Kushina looked at Kakashi and gasped before rushing towards him and healing him. His arm was twisted 180 and lost a lot of blood. He had a concussion, no doubt it was when Sasuke kicked Kakashi onto the tree. After a few minutes of healing and Kakashi woke up, though he was paler and shaky. He looked around before spotting Sasuke. He glared at the raven-haired boy before using the chakra he had left and leaving in a swirl of leaves. Kushina looked at the direction where Kakashi looked, glared at the raven-haired boy too. He had no right to be that cruel, especially to his own sensei. She was about to scream, lecture Sasuke, when she felt her own son's glare directed towards her and reluctantly she backed down. Kushina coughed a bit before speaking. I guess you all passed, seeing as you guys got the bells as a team. Which was the main point of this test, to test your teamwork, she said before looking directly at Sakura, making the pinkette recoil at her sensei's stare. Sakura, instead of accepting Natsumi's help, you were only thinking about yourself and in the end could have gotten you the chance of getting the bells. Sakura lowered her head in shame. Great, she was going to fail and go back to the academy. Leave her be, Naruto said, gaining everybody's attention besides Sasuke. I told her not to do anything, but if you wanted her to work along with us, then I should tell you that she worked with me in setting up my trap to gain your attention, along with making other traps in case you tried anything at the time. Naruto said, surprising everybody, especially Sakura. Kushina knew he was lying but didn't say or do anything besides nod. Sakura for the most part just kept on looking at Naruto. Why did he speak for her? Why did he protect her from going back to the academy? She had never talked to him in the academy, always being afraid due to his cold exterior. She didn't know anything about him besides him being a prodigy and brother of Natsumi, but that was about it. So why? Sakura's thoughts were broken when she heard her sensei speak. Good, you all are officially Team 7 inches, Kushina declared as they all smiled. Meet me here tomorrow, same time, same place. Dismissed. Sasuke said as he stood up and walked away slowly while his ex-fangirl walking behind him and Satsuki walked next to him. Since they were both going home, might as well go with him. As Naruto was about to leave, a hand stopped him. He turned around and saw Kushina and Natsumi standing behind him. "What do you want?" Naruto asked. Kushina said, "Naruto-kun, if you want to speak about earlier, then don't bother," Naruto said, cutting her off. "As a leaf shinobi, I helped her." "Naruto-kun, listen to me," Kushina said. "I want to talk about your chakra chains." "What about them? You have already seen it, I don't your help. I'm much better in using them than you." "I can see that," Kushina admitted. "But how can you just use them without even straining yourself? Every time I use them they always take 2/8 of my chakra, and yet when you used them you didn't even look affected. Why?" she asked. He looked at her for a few minutes before sighing. "Kami. Because you use the first stage of chakra chains, there are 5 stages. When I used them against Kakashi, I used the one stage which are more powerful than yours, thus the reason why they are black. As which your chains have not even gotten to the first stage." Every Uzumaki before their extinction had the chance to gain chakra chains, but they had to have double the size of their normal chakra pools in order to gain chakra chains. Natsumi here has the chance. She just has to go through some scenario where she is in extreme danger that she just has to use those chains, Naruto said. Natsumi's eyes sparkled in hope of having chakra chains, as to which Kushina looked astonished. So the only reason she had chakra chains was because of the Kyuubi. Black smoke warped around Naruto and slowly started to dissolve into the air, but before he left he decided to say more. "Remember what you said, Kushina, because I will make that wish come true," Naruto said before disappearing. Natsumi looked at her mother and saw her gain a small smile. What the hell happened? With Natsumi 4 hours later. Deciding to celebrate, Natsumi had invited Hinata, Satsuki, and Ino to eat and celebrate their new careers as kunoichi. Thus the reason they were seen walking into the Akamichi barbecue. Once they were inside they were immediately met with a friendly waiter. He was obviously not an Akamichi as he lacked the sufficient mass to equate one to their clan status, but each knew that Choza, the owner and current head of Akamichi clan, hired non-Akamichi so other clan members could carry out more tasks throughout their clan. Truly a kind man like his son Choji. "How may I help you, Hyuga-sama, Yamanaka-sama, Namikaze-sama, and Uchiha-sama?" the waiter asked with a friendly smile. He was an average-looking man with a shaved head, apron on, white button-up and black-colored pants with black shoes. Yes, seats for 4 please?" Natsumi asked while the waiter immediately nodded before getting 4 menus. He then led the 4 women to a booth with a window. The waiter left only to be replaced with a good-looking woman. She looked to be in her early 20s. She had black hair tied in a ponytail, black apron on, white t-shirt, and blue pants. She wore a pair of black shoes and also sported a $1 million smile. "What may I get you girls?" she asked with a smile as she pulled out a notepad and pen. "Tea please," Ino responded. "Juice," Natsumi said. Water please," Hinata chimed. "Water," Satsuki said. "Alright, I'll be back in just a minute," she smiled as she flipped down her notepad. "So, what do you guys want to talk about?" Satsuki said as she intertwined her fingers and put her elbows on the table. "How about boys?" Ino said with a grin, making Hinata eep. "Alright then, which boy, Ino-chan?" Natsumi grinned just as the waitress returned with their drinks before scurrying off to tend to other customers. "How about your hottie of a brother, Natsumi-chan?" Ino grinned again while Satsuki, and Natsumi herself did a spit take. Hinata just eeped again as she sunk into the seat. What?" Natsumi asked with a blush. "Oh come on, you know your brother's hot," Ino grinned. "Satsuki, you think he's hot, right?" Ino asked the blushing Uchiha. "Hee, she does have me there, Natsumi-chan," Satsuki said sheepishly. "What about you, Hinata-chan?" Ino asked the heiress. He is very attractive, and Natsumi-chan," she said to Natsumi. "So, Natsumi-chan, do you think your brother's hot?" she asked the blonde-haired kunoichi. Natsumi blushed crimson and looked at her friends before sinking her seat only for the blush to intensify. "Why yes, he's pretty hot, I guess," she responded to the Yamanaka heiress. "I knew it, you have a crush on your brother." Ino laughed heartedly. Natsumi grumbled as her face threatened to turn into a tomato. Speaking of hot brothers, there he is now along with Sasuke, Ino said as she saw Naruto and Sasuke enter the restaurant before sitting in a booth by themselves just as the waitress from earlier walked up to them. She flipped open her notepad before writing something in it. She then ripped it off and put it right in front of Naruto. They saw him smirk before the waitress spoke up. "Meet me at that address at 9. Natsumi heard the waitress say to him before she resumed her normal job of taking orders. "What did you guys think she said to him?" Ino asked as she looked at Naruto looking at the menu, when in reality though she knew what the waitress said. I mean, it was very hard to resist her own boyfriend. Natsumi felt a bit of jealousy rise up in the pit of her stomach as she remembered the waitress. She slipped him a piece of paper with her address on it and said to meet her there at 9. Natsumi responded as she gained a frown and put her elbow on the table. "Wow, what a whore," Satsuki muttered as she watched Naruto out of the corner of her eye. "Tell me about it," Natsumi responded as she traced her finger on the top of the glass she had. "So, then let's follow him," Ino said with a cackle making Satsuki, Natsumi, and Hinata sputter. "Great. We'll go to the Namikaze residence and wait for him there before following him," Satsuki said grinning before blushing at what she just said. With Naruto, he just pocketed the paper before ordering sake to drink for both him and Sasuke. He was bored and normally didn't go to women's houses when they invited him, but he'd go. He was very aware of Natsumi and her friends whispering about him, but he didn't care. He had slept with a number of women, including the Nara clan's head's wife, Yoshino, a few civilians, and a couple kunoichi here and there. Naruto really didn't go to them, they came to him. Yoshino explained to him that her husband hadn't been meeting her needs lately and explained that it was just a one, maybe two-time thing, and now they met every other week. A male waiter came back this time to take their special, which consisted of barbecue ribs with a salad on the side, though Sasuke had said to add a bit more tomatoes into his salad. Naruto closed his eyes but opened them as he sensed a low-cage chakra source enter the establishment. He saw none other than Izan Uchiha making her way over to his booth. She now wore a black, loose, long-sleeve V-neck shirt with a fishnet mesh underneath it. The V-neck did show her large and very ample cleavage sitting at low D cups. She had tape going from her wrists up to her mid-forearm and black fingerless gloves on. She also wore a pair of somewhat baggy black pants with tape going from ankle to mid-shin. For shoes she wore a pair of black shinobi sandals and often painted her toenails and fingernails black. At her hip sat a katana with a golden hilt guard, black sheath, and red hilt. If she were to draw it, it would have been completely hollow along the length of it with silver blade. She had a beautiful complexion with charcoal eyes, long black hair that fell to just below her shoulder blades, and her beautiful heart-shaped face. Her Konoha forehead protector was situated round her neck. "May I have a seat?" she asked as she stood in front of their booth. She looked at him with his fingers intertwined and elbows on the table, his chin resting on his fingers. He looked more aged than he should have been, in the mental sense and somewhat in the physical sense given his height and body build. Sasuke looked at her for a couple of seconds before nodding to Naruto. "You may, Uchiha-san," he said, not even looking at her when he spoke. He simply gazed out the window as she sat there with her katana now resting in her lap and one hand cupping the other on the table. "How may we help you today?" he asked her plainly, still not looking at her. "I know you have the Sharingan," she said, pointing at Naruto, getting straight to the point, hoping to get at least a reaction out of him. She didn't even get a batted eyelash. "And we know you have the Mangekyo," Sasuke responded to her, making her once neutral eyes widen slightly. "I do some spying of my own." "You need to work on your sensing skills or I'm just getting that good," he told her impassively as he looked at her. "When did you get the Sharingan?" she asked Naruto after a while, ignoring her brother's last comment. "The day I got injured by Natsumi," he told her. "Yes, the emotional trauma going inside you must have caused that, and along with the physical pain you had, it just added to it." Pause. "Does your family have any Uchiha relatives?" she asked him. "That was the first thing I did when I got back from the hospital. Kushina was brought here from Uzushiogakure, a place that we still didn't know much about besides their mastery in the sealing arts, so it is likely either my paternal grandmother or grandfather was an Uchiha, so then he or she sealed her Sharingan permanently. Minato is out of the question as he was dropped off in the orphanage," he deduced. "He is quite the genius," Izan thought. "Are you going to tell anyone?" he asked her. "No, I am not. Would it bother you if I did? Izan responded, hoping to get a glimpse of emotion other than impassiveness. It would be quite annoying to have questions and for Minato to bother me on how exactly I have it, Naruto said as he peered into the surprised eyes of Izan. He truly is a genius, she trailed off. If that is all, our meal is here, he told her, making her nod her head. Good day, Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun, she said as they spared her a glance before they began to eat. She sighed internally as she walked out of the restaurant. With Natsumi. Why was your sister over there, Satsuki-chan? Ino asked the eating Uchiha. She talks to Naruto every now and then, so it isn't strange. You have any idea what they were talking about, Natsumi-chan? She looked pretty serious, Satsuki asked the eating redhead. Natsumi shook her head no, making Satsuki suck her teeth in annoyance. It's not our business to know anyways, Natsumi said innocently while Ino and Satsuki gave her deadpan expressions. Why, you did listen in on him when the waitress was talking to him. And Natsumi-chan, Hinata told her, making her whistle innocently. Aha, Natsumi-chan's jealous. Ino cackled, making Natsumi spit her food onto Satsuki. The former gained a sheepish expression as the latter's eye twitched. Ino cackled madly with Hinata giggling slightly. Natsumi, rubbing the back of her head, looked at Satsuki. Hee, sorry. Why are they so interested in my life? Naruto thought, jumping from building to building. The moment he had left the house, his mother and sister had both followed him, thinking that he wouldn't notice. Minato was still in the Hokage tower working, so he couldn't make it, thank Kami. Anyways, back to the girls. On the way they had met up with other girls and they too followed him, Hinata, Hitomi, Hinata's mother, and his girlfriend Ino. They tried to mask their chakras, but it was useless to do so. Right now he was on his way to Sasuke's house. -5 minutes later. Knock knock knock. Shut up. Sasuke's voice could be heard on the other side of the door before it opened to reveal him with a kunai on his hand. Naruto chuckled. She's still annoying? He didn't care if Makoto heard him. What was she going to do? Sasuke just teached and motioned for Naruto to enter. Outside, Kushina frowned at how rude Sasuke was to Makoto. Her friend had told her many times of what happened, and while she could have tried to do something, she couldn't for 2 reasons. 1. He was Naruto's best friend. And 2. She couldn't physically punish him, so the only thing to do was just talk to him, but it never worked since he would always ignore her. Inside, Makoto saw Naruto enter her house and went to sit on the sofa, completely ignoring her as Sasuke went up to his room. He lay down a second later, not caring of manners. For him, Sasuke's home was his home as his house was Sasuke's house. Makoto wanted to say something but just kept her mouth shut. Like Sasuke, she was afraid of him. So she went into the kitchen to make some tea for her guest. A few seconds later, Satsuki had come down the stairs. She saw him and blushed a bit before going to the kitchen quickly to talk to Makoto. Sasuke came down seconds after her and nodded to Naruto. Naruto stood up from the couch before going into his pocket and taking out 2 cigarettes. He threw one to Sasuke as he lit his. Sasuke nodded in gratitude before lighting his. Makoto and Satsuki had come out of the kitchen to see the 2 boys smoking. The mother wanted to say something but stopped herself. The last time she told him to stop smoking, he had said some words that, to say the least, made her lock herself in her room for a couple of days. And if she tried to take the cigarette, she would always wound up on the floor with a red mark on her cheek. Let's go, Sasuke said as they walked towards the door and left without saying anything. Satsuki looked at her mother. Let's go, Ka-san. They quickly had to follow them before they lose them. With Naruto and Sasuke. So are we going? Sasuke asked, jumping from building to building. Naruto ran his hand through his hair. Well, that little whore told us to meet her at her house in a few, but I'd rather relax tonight. So let's do some damage tonight with a bit of fun. Naruto smirked, throwing away his cigarette. Sasuke smirked as they jumped up onto a roof. Kushina and the others saw clones poof right next to the 2 boys and were a bit shocked at how they didn't do any hand signs. But then again, they were prodigies, so it wasn't that much of a shock. I told Zetsu to tell Obito to meet us on top of the Hokage monument in a few, so you... Naruto pointed to the clones. Go with the whore and we go meet him. The clones nodded and took off. Kushina was a bit confused and shocked as to why he said Obito and that they were supposed to meet him. He's dead. Could it be that someone was lying to her baby? Let's go. Kushina saw that the others were already following the 2 boys while she was thinking. A few minutes later and they were on top of the second Hokage's head. The girls all were looking from on top of the monument. Seconds later they, especially Kushina, saw something shocking appear. In a swirling vortex a figure appeared in front of the two boys. Kushina saw that the figure had a mask, the same one that fateful day that the Kyuubi was extracted from her and tensed. She wanted to go down and protect her child but saw that the figure wasn't doing anything. She'll see for now. The others saw that Kushina tensed and were curious yet a bit scared. Was he the same one that she told them about? So we finally meet you, Madara, Naruto said sarcastically as the masked man narrowed his gaze on them. How do you know of me? The masked man asked slowly, ready to kill the two. Sasuke smirked. Wouldn't you just love to know? He said as lightning started to form on his left hand. The girls were shocked at how he knew Rikiri. The masked man didn't show it but was also shocked as to how someone so young knew Kakashi's signature technique. How do you know that technique? The masked man asked, his voice a bit on edge. Naruto smirked. Relax, you shouldn't be on edge, we just came to talk. He looked at the lightning. Besides, it was easy for Sasuke to learn it. I mean, who wouldn't want to know the technique that killed Rin-chan? He knew how to push Obito's buttons. And just as he predicted, the masked man rushed towards them. But it wasn't simple as that. Once reaching them and attempting to grab Naruto, to his shock, his hand went through the genin. Pow! His mask was strong, yes, but not strong enough for the punch that Sasuke had landed on him, which again shocked the hell out of him. Kushina was the main one out the girls that was on a state of shock. Still, how could her son know that same technique as the masked man who almost destroyed the village? Come on, you didn't think that you would be the only one to know that intangibility technique, did you? Of course he was going to rub it in Obito's face. Anyways, he became serious. I'm going to tell you right now that Madara Gigi's plan is not going to work, so might as well discard it and just work for me. He could either make the right choice and live or die and not see Rin. Obito, who was on the ground with the right half of his mask broken, looked at him with shock on his face. From on top, Kushina and Makoto saw the face that the masked man was now showing and didn't know what to say. Was that really Obito? Tick-tock, the clock is ticking, Naruto said as Obito stood up. The plan was flawed, simple as that, and even if you did revive the Jubimi and Sasuke would have destroyed it within a matter of seconds. Obito clenched his hand. Naruto looked at Obito and saw that he wasn't going to choose the right one that would not have him be tortured and then killed in the most brutal way. He looked at Sasuke. Do it. The Uchiha Genin nodded and brought out a scroll. He laid it on the ground and opened it. Poof! In front of him was a Anbu who was looking around frantically. Where a pop asterisk. Before he could say anything, his neck was snapped on a certain angle to make him unconscious. Kuchiyose. Edo Tensai. Summoning. Impure world reincarnation. Paper started to encase the unconscious Anbu. The others on the roof were in a state of shock at seeing how Sasuke was using a forbidden and vile technique. Within seconds, instead of the Anbu, a figure in paper now stood in its place. Obito knew who he was reviving due to the armor that was now becoming more and more clear. Obito. Meet Madara Gigi. Once the paper had fully conjured to make the figure appear, it showed the once person that Obito was supposed to revive later on. Madara Uchiha, who looked and was in his prime state. Said legendary figure opened his eyes and the first thing he saw was his pupil. Obito, I see that the plan has gone as planned. Madara trailed off when he saw that he was within Konoha and not a battlefield. Obito stood in shock at seeing his mentor. Naruto and Sasuke just stood back and looked at amusement. From on top, you could say that all the girls were basically scared shitless. While I would love to see you get your ass beaten for not completing said plan, Madara turned around and looked down to see the two. I had to get things going along, now. Ack. Obito went down onto the floor holding his stomach. Madara couldn't even track the raven-haired kid at how fast he was. You see, Naruto unsealed Madara's gunbai that he had sealed within his right arm. This world is going to go how we want it to go. Naruto raised the gunbai to where it hid his face, and before Madara knew it he was in the Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi. Madara was not going to show it but he was impressed. Madara Gigi. Madara turned around to see the two kids in front of him with another person that looked just like him. Madara, one, looked at his twin, if you would call it that, and smirked. When they had come into this world he had no armor, just pants and sandals due to taking the armor off back in their old world, so for him a brand, or should I say old clothes, would be nice instead of having his upper body naked. While I could stand here and tell you how I am just going straight to the point. Madara, too, didn't like being talked to as if he was nothing but complied nonetheless. We are from another dimension if you will, and this would be much better if you and I just agreed to merge. Don't make our grandson here force you to merge when you wouldn't like that, and yes, he has the blood of Takara and us within him, so I know he is our grandson. Madara, too, looked at him in mild shock before stepping closer to Madara. 1. He looked like him and talked like him. There was one voice within him telling him to do it while the other voice was telling him not to. What do I get out of this? He asked. Naruto smirked. Always a Madara attitude in every world. What do you get out of this? Outside. Madara looked around and smirked. Oh, how good it was to finally be out and about. Madara looked at his hand and clenched it. Sure, he was reanimated, but still, it was better than being stuck inside of a person's mind for years. Gigi. Madara stopped his thinking process and looked at Naruto. Naruto pointed towards Obito and knew what he was talking about. Obito, it's about time we increase the plan with Konoha faster, Madara said as Obito widened his eyes. What was happening? Naruto looked at Sasuke. Will they talk about what happened today? He asked, as to which Sasuke smirked. What do you think? The Uzumaki nodded. Good. He looked at Madara. Gigi, if you would. From above the girls felt something on the back of their necks, and next thing they know they couldn't move at all. Madara looked down at Konoha and smirked. Kaden, fire release. He placed his palms on the top of Tobirama's head. Orochi no Ryu, raging storm of the dragon. The girls all saw it. Nothing happened for a few seconds, and then within the middle of Konoha. And then, boom! Even though they were far away from the middle of Konoha, the explosion of flames that came up from the ground were loud enough for people within a 90-mile radius to hear. The flames didn't spread, it just stood there like a still column. The villagers and shinobi all just stood around it. Some tried to put it out, but nothing worked. No matter how strong the user was in Sweden, it still wouldn't work. What a beautiful sight, Naruto said before turning to Obito. If you want her back, then we will gladly do it for you. All we need is your loyalty, and that's it. Obito looked at him for a few seconds before nodding. Sasuke cut his palm with a kunai before tossing it to Obito, who did the same thing as Sasuke. Obito put his arm forward as Sasuke did so too. With the blood mixing, they separated. With that, the agreement is done. Your blood is within Sasuke's system, so if you ever try to betray us, we will just use said blood to cause the pain. Obito nodded. Madara looked at the fire he caused and smirked. Gigi. Madara looked back at Naruto. I think it's time you and Obito head to aim to meet my cousin, Naruto said as both Uchihas nodded with one smirking. Sasuke looked up and saw that the girls were looking down at them in shock, anger, hurt, fearful, and arousal. He jumped to where they were and sat on the edge, no words spoken as they all looked at him. Obito put his hand on Madara's shoulder before teleporting to aim. Naruto looked up and smirked. The next thing the girls knew, Naruto was in behind them. Sasuke loosened the seal as they quickly turned around. Beautiful, wasn't it? Naruto asked with the smirk never leaving his face. The girls glared at him. Sasuke. Makoto was about to yell at Sasuke when he grabbed her by the neck and slammed her on the ground. The girls were about to attack when they stopped moving. Now, we shouldn't do something irrational. Naruto went forward and put his arm around Satsuki's shoulders. Yelling at us or scolding us would do nothing to change the fact that Madara Gigi caused that, and we told him to. He removed his hand before going to where Sasuke was. Naruto looked at Makoto, who was scared to look at him in the eyes, so she turned the other way. Naruto went into his pocket and brought out small white papers before placing them on the back of her neck quickly. You see, I have a bit of influence in Konoha due to me being a prodigy and all that, but not much to make people believe every single word that comes out of my mouth. He started to stroke her cheek. As to which you do. You have a big influence in Konoha, seeing as how people believe you are gentle and powerful in the eyes of the people. He stopped. I need that. To have people follow my ideals. To have my soldiers. Pause. You can and will give me that. Naruto looked at her in the eyes, and you might be asking, how right? She slightly nodded. Well, that's where the things come in, because it just happens that. He leaned close to her face. You, my dear Makoto-chan, Naruto smirked. Or ovulating, he said as she became wide-eyed. The rest of the girls became shocked before quickly trying to break through their paralysis but couldn't. Makoto tried to move the rest of her body but also found she couldn't. I need to revive the Uzumaki clan back to its former strength, and with you having my child will it not only help in that but also make it so I increase in influence by becoming the clan head of the Uchiha clan for the meantime. He cupped her face. And you don't have a choice on whether you want to become pregnant or not, my dear, because one of those little seals that I placed on you make it so you can't use any birth control techniques. You can't kill the baby, in which I doubt you will do. And you can't betray me if you think of doing that. Makoto wanted to scream, run, or at least do something but couldn't. Naruto leaned forward again. Now, how about we start now? He loosened her paralysis seal before pulling her into a kiss and shoving his tongue into her mouth. That's all for my now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.